Well, Joe, thanks for being here today.
My pleasure.
I've I've got a few points just to kind of give everybody a rundown on who you are. It's too short. You do a lot of things. You've done a lot of things. You're a busy entrepreneur with great entrepreneurial spirit. So I guess just if I butcher anything, cut me off. But you grew up on a reservation in Oregon. Started dabbling in real estate at the young age of 14 years old. You've had companies in Brazil. You've started multiple app companies. Currently, Loca is the one that you'll be primarily focused on right now.
Yep.
You've
Loca.us.
worked with, yeah, you've worked with Governor Perry and the Obama administration. I'm
Not at the
assuming in an
same time.
advisory role.
Not at the same time.
Not at the same time. No, not at the same time. You're a venture capitalist. You're a busy angel investor. You have dealings in Ukraine currently. 1,000+ doors in real estate. What did I miss? I mean, I could go on and reading some information on you. You do a lot.
Oh, sounds pretty long-winded. So, yep, sounds like enough.
Yeah, I guess I would just to get a good feel of you. I'd like to start out with your life growing up on the reservation
Mm.
and how you got your business mind there and got into real estate.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm not native,
Yeah,
so we were the white tribe, as they refer to us. And
yep.
but I was born there, so I grew up. So it's just the community to me. Great people.
So did your
My
parents work there,
So
or what
my
put you on there?
father and mother met in school. I think it was the first semester of their freshman year, and they decided to get married, and they got pregnant, and that was the end of school for both of them. So they moved back to Arizona, where they were both from. And my mother's father, so my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, he had told me, it's like, okay, well, I'll help you start a business. And he had been running like these sewing machine businesses, and he had sewing machine and fabric that kind of complement each other. And then he also did some washing, although unfortunately they weren't into money laundering because they didn't make that much money.
Mm,
So
right.
the wrong side of money laundering, the actual clothes side. So they said, okay, well, I'll help set you up with one of these businesses, but unfortunately, y'all can't live next to each other because you'd be competing. So one of her sisters had already been living in Klamath Falls, Oregon, and she had a sewing machine business. That's what her and her husband had started up, my uncle and aunt. And so they moved up to start the fabric side of that. So they did the fabric store, and they did that long enough to learn that they know absolutely nothing about fabric or running a little store. So, as I understand, I was not born yet, but that didn't do so well. And my father, to make ends meet, he started swinging a hammer. So he became
Mhm.
a contractor and doing lots of construction. And we kids, he ended up having 13 kids, and we all were the labor force. Right
Yep.
before I was born, they were looking for a really cheap place to kind of build their own home, and the farther out of Klamath Falls you got, the cheaper the property was, and the closer to the reservation, the cheaper it got. So they ended up actually building their first home right on the reservation, and
Mhm.
I was born around, I think, a year or two right after they moved there. So yeah, so that put them in the reservation. After a while, he ended up running for office and became like a justice of the peace. It's like a traffic court on the reservation. So that was
Yep.
kind of a fun, nuance to what it was. Not a lot of money went through there, but for the most part time, his main gig was construction. So we all work construction, and the town, if you were to drive through, it's Chiloquin, for anyone who knows it. It's right at the base of Crater Lake. Gorgeous area. Real I'm very fortunate to have grown up in the area. It's beautiful.
Mhm.
But the sign as you drive in, it says Chiloquin, Oregon population. It's like 957. And it's said that for like 50 years. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's probably even less now, but very small town. And my mother would work as a janitor there at the local church. And so if it was a weekday, if we didn't have school, we were out like having to sweep a job site, put on a roof, we were doing something in the construction on the weekend. We were having to help clean a church or something. So that was pretty much the
Yeah.
lifestyle of what we were, but we were not that abnormal for the town itself. So a lot on the reservation, most natives have very large families, and they're just as poor. So everybody's just,
Hmm.
trying to hustle and figure out a way to make money. And so that would be, you'd always find a truck full of wood where they're trying to sell a load of firewood. Or, you'd have in the winter, we'd go around shovel people's roofs, try to unload all the
Hmm.
weight off of it. So people are just coming up with odds and end things constantly to try to make a buck. So if you really go there, the entire town is full of entrepreneurs as we would
Hmm.
define them. None of us think of ourselves as entrepreneurs. We're just hustlers because
Yeah.
you either starve or you figure something out. So that's really the name of the game, was just trying to figure something out. So the whole town, there's one main employer, and everything else is really trying to figure out a way to stay around, survive
Yeah.
through it. And so whether those are trading services or not, just very lively environment of really trying to figure lots of things out. Great community area.
So when you got older, was it I can't wait to get out of here, or did you and your siblings stick around, or did you fly the coop the second you could?
Yeah, I mean, sadly, I did fly the coop as soon as I could, but
Yeah.
not so much that I wanted to get out of there. I still have a sister who's a pharmacist there in Clown Falls, and
Yeah.
lots of family members still in the Oregon, area. But I think Chiloquin suffers from the same thing. I've been here in Texas when I was with Governor Perry. We travel around, and all the small towns across the country, Canada's faced with the same thing, is young people
Hmm.
are living in the small towns and they're going to the big cities for jobs. So it's a population issue. I was one of 13. I only have, four. So
Yeah.
I'm now considered a really big family. So a lot of people just have one or
Yeah.
two. So you see the shift in population has changed so much that a lot of the younger people have just moved to cities. So Chiloquin's not abnormal for that. Many young people leave. They're starting to come back, especially, one thing Chiloquin has is it's rich in culture. And
Hmm.
I did not appreciate that as much as I do now, for certain. I mean, when you're there, you're just like, yeah, I have to go to another powwow. Come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
And we're gonna go do another friendship dance around the drum circle. Like, what? And you don't realize, like,
Yeah.
I'm growing up in this Native American culture as a white person, and no one else really has this experience to kind of see inside of that. And I ended up going for 2 years in Australia, and I got to spend 2 years with the Aboriginals. And that helped me kind of complement the experience and say, man, that was actually amazing. I mean, most Americans do not know what the native scene really is. And here I was grown up, grew up, and it definitely took it for advantage of it, or took it for granted, I should say. So a lot of people try to go back, especially the natives. They're trying to go back to give back, but there's just not enough population, to go around.
No,
There's not enough jobs to sustain a lot of people. So yeah, so
unfortunately not.
so unfortunately, if you wanted to get to, go to a great school as far as college, you had to leave, and then from there, if you're trying to find, employment, you had to leave. So it's just one thing after another led to all of us having to kind of, disperse, and now we're spread around the world as far as my family
Yeah.
goes. So yeah, so not much as well. There's still a connection. I mean, I still stay connected to people, but it's really just I guess I have a brother that lives just north of there, but other than
Yeah.
that, not too many are there anymore.
And where's home for you now?
I'm in Austin. So
Austin. So
yeah,
pretty good center, lots going
exactly.
on, lots
Yeah,
of
it's turned
opportunity.
into a
Yeah.
little tech hub. Apparently, everybody wants to move here. So
Yeah. The new Silicon Valley because California's getting old.
exactly.
LA's getting
All
old. Did you spend time in LA?
I've been to LA quite a few times, more time in San
Yeah.
Francisco than LA, but I would say California's billionaire tax is probably just going to bring us more people to Austin. So,
Yeah. Austin sounds like it's growing. So where did you sniff out the first opportunity for real estate being 14 and
so my father was a contractor, swinging a hammer, and he started just listening to, roundabout. There weren't podcasts at those times. They were all, tape. What is it? The cassette tape in the truck.
yeah.
So it was kind of the university on wheels, he called it. So he just listened to these different network marketing things he'd buy, and they're like, "Oh, invest in real estate, try to grow this." So he did buy one house. I mean, he was a contractor, so he already knew how to build and fix up a house. So he bought one, fixed it up just to be a rental.
Hmm.
And, that was sort of my 12, 13 age, and we'd all had to participate and do it. and get a feel for it. So from there, I was already working. I'd saved up some money. So I was like, I'm going to do this on my own. So
Yeah.
in Oregon, you can't own property until
Hmm.
you're 18. So I had to get my
Hmm.
father to actually put the name on the title, but I went and did the deal, found a house on the reservation. So he bought his in Klamath Falls, a little nicer area. I didn't have that kind of money.
Yeah.
So on the reservation, these numbers are going to shock, many, but this is this is the reality of what it is. I did look, and they're not that different, oddly enough. So highly sought after neighborhood. I bought
Yeah.
the house originally for $10,000, and I
What year are we talking?
this is 94.
That's big money for a 12 or
Yeah.
13-year-old
Oh,
in
yeah. Well, I
94.
didn't have 10,000. So what I said was,
Borrow
I'll
it.
give you, I think it was $2,000 down. And then I financed it over like 10 years. And I said, my first payment, not to be due for 90 days. And they said, okay. So I gave them $2,000 down. And I basically ran a clock. I was like, I have 90 days to try to get this thing either resold or rented. And then I went to the local hardware store and I agreed with them, say, hey, will you extend me a line of credit while I fix this up? And I don't think they expected me to extend it. Now $10,000 is nothing, but then $10,000 was a lot and definitely was under my, father's name. But, he had put the name
Yeah.
in the contract and I went day and night. We had that thing remodeled and ready to go in 45 days. And so
Hmm.
nice and early. I ended up selling it and I sold it on what we call at the time a wrap. And so it means I keep my loan, but I resell it and I go to the title company and I take the new loan and it literally wraps it. And so when the people I sold it to make their payment, they will then take the portion that goes to the people I bought it from and pay them and then send me the excess. And I don't have to pay the property taxes or the insurance. And so I sold it for 45,000 with $5,000 down. And, from there, I was making money every month, and now had $3,000 more for a down payment than I had when I started. So I took that and then bought two more. And what makes Chiloquin and Klamath Falls area unique is it's not too dissimilar than many parts of Canada, but there's lots of trees. And
Hmm.
so lumber mills are everywhere. And when they built these lumber mills, they gave a lot of the employees 7-foot studs for free because 8-foot studs are the standard. So the 7 ones were garbage studs. So many of these mill workers built these 7-foot high ceilings, these homes with 7-foot high
Yeah.
ceilings. And they're not on foundations, they're just on the dirt. So you could
Oof.
buy these in Klamath Falls. Klamath Falls fetched a little higher price, so people would pay more to live in Klamath Falls. It was like the big city to me, even though it's like
Hmm.
20,000 people, but it was the city to me. And I started, that's what my next ones were. I bought two houses, both of them had 7-foot ceilings and were both on the ground. And it was quite a
Hmm.
project, but I could afford those. So I, bought each one of them with $2,500 as a down payment. I went in, I had to do all the work and literally had to lift these houses, rebuild all the dry rot underneath, really gut the inside and make the best of what I could out of a 7-foot ceiling home and
Yeah.
remodeled all those. And those I ended up selling and they cashed out. So that really is what leapfrogged me into doing lots, many, many, many deals. So
Hmm. Well, yeah, life skills you had right away. I mean, swinging a hammer for one. I mean, you had
mhm,
probably some family help. Hey, brothers and
exactly.
sisters, let's flip this damn house. So let's support. Real estate now. When you look at if you just want to buy a house and bring contractors in to do the work and flip it, I mean, you're not making money
No, it's so
usually, unless it's
expensive.
a big project. But yeah, very
Yeah, I mean,
expensive labor.
you speak that I have a couple of companies in Oregon still that will build. One of them manages properties, and the other one builds new construction. And as we were looking through them, and I don't have a lot to do with it, so I won't take credit for the building, but I do
Hmm.
finance them and run
Hmm.
it. So I do the accounting more. And I was just like running through the accounting every 6 months. I'm looking, I was like, 60% of these costs are all labor. This is crazy because
Hmm.
I mean, I know what it costs to put on a roof. And right now, just to give you an example, right now in Oregon, what we're paying for as contractors, the roof costs between 35 and 45,000 to get done.
Hmm.
Those materials, I can buy all the materials to do that roof for about 4,500. So that
Wow.
shows you the amount of costs that are divided between labor. And I was just blown away. So I told my sons, I was like, listen, This is crazy. You each need to buy a piece of land and I will help you, but let's build a house. And so they're working on that right now. I have one son who's
Yeah.
found a piece of property. We got a floor plan. So we're going to try to build that house 1,500 square feet for 90,000. That's
Oof.
crazy. So
That's crazy with probably middle class finishings, nice
exactly,
countertops,
exactly.
nothing crazy,
Nothing too
but just
crazy. Nothing too crazy. And it's a bonus trust plan. It's a big rectangle, easy to put up. I mean, it's made to be as
yeah.
efficient as possible, but really trying to build the best bang for the buck to see if we can do that. But if we build that, he'll be in it for about 200 and the houses next to him all sell for about 500,000. So that's where it's
Wow.
like, if this can happen, I mean, and now not everybody is in his situation. He's
No.
fortunate.
Yeah.
But others can do this exact same thing in so many different ways. Austin, Oregon, Colorado, California. These are 4 states that have jumped in the ADU market. I don't know if you're familiar with the ADU market.
No.
So in the US, housing's just gone so crazy. So many jurisdictions have been pushing for these alternative dwelling units. And the alternative dwelling units are really saying, well, how much land do you have? And what's the minimum we can put a house on? And so
Mhm.
basically almost any house that has a little piece of property around it can have 3 more units, a total of 4
Mhm.
units. So you can turn almost any house into a fourplex. And
Yeah.
that's not as easy as that. We're doing it. That's a lot of what we're doing in Oregon, but we're literally buying the house and putting up 3 units on the back. So we're a little more structured and, there's a lot more money and we're doing a lot more. But
Yeah.
everyone can now look at their house and say, look at this 2-car garage. Because
Yeah.
garages are not a necessity, they're not required, right? So now you're looking at the 2-car garage, and if you look at how real estate has evolved, I mean, we used to need entertainment systems, right? They would stick out at least 24 inches, and they're like 5
Mhm.
feet wide by 5 feet tall. Useless anymore, you don't need it. There's a laser thin window that goes on your wall now if you have a TV.
Yeah.
You needed like CD and movie holders. Those are all gone. The home office is now a laptop and you can sit in the bathroom if you want with Wi-Fi. So
Yeah.
that's all gone. And you just look at the things that have changed the home, um, and it's reduced the amount of square footage we actually need. Not to
Mhm.
mention population decline has made it where there's not as many people in the average ham. And so there
No.
are fewer kids. So now you're like, I've got this 2-car garage. I've got 2,500 square feet. And, it's an easy 3 bedroom and an office. I could turn this into a duplex. And you look at
Mhm.
that, and someone is looking at trying to like maximize, real estate where they're like, "Ah, I don't have enough to get into real estate or to do something else, but they're actually sitting on quite a gold mine because they
Mhm.
could, if they wanted to split the garage, or they could use the entire garage and carve off a little room. But for not much money, just your own cost. If you're going to hire a contractor, it's going to be, a little more, but there's not a lot involved in this. But we're
Mhm.
talking from 10 to 15,000, you could turn your house into a duplex. And
Mhm.
that's pretty incredible where you could live in half of it and be just fine and rent out the other side enough to where it's paying for a good chunk of your mortgage and property taxes now.
Yeah.
So that's where I think the
If
new
people
opportunities are, for everyone.
it are. People just got to stop thinking they need to live in mansions when they're 25 years old
That's
and
exactly
wait
it.
till they're in their later years to buy that forever home for themselves and make money as you go. And
That's exactly.
the one, like you had a very much a grassroots roots intro into real estate, but most people that are working right now and they're saving up some money and they want to go, maybe they already have a mortgage. They want to go to the bank and get another rental property and the rent just might even barely cover their mortgage or not even.
Yep. That's exactly it.
That's very hard to grow a real estate business. And do
Exactly.
you have strategies for that?
Well, I think
Or that's just hard knocks?
it's boring. I had this conversation just the other day, and I know it's not the sexy way to invest in real estate. Many, I think, are more obsessed with, having the pizzazz than they are with
Hmm.
just, it's what's your goal? If your goal is to actually invest and grow a portfolio that grows over time and to create capital and equity for yourself, then the best way is not that sexy. But if you really
Hmm.
just want to have fun and do all that, I mean, go and invest in funds and do all these weird things that will You will not make as much, but it's fine. Because if
Mhm.
people are trying to get into it and they're looking at outside rentals or they're trying to, get into these funds or even to do these BRRRRs, the truth
Mhm.
is in the US, not in Canada, but in the US, you have what if you're married, you have a $500,000 every 2 years you can take advantage of the primary tax exemption. And to not put that to work is just a waste because any other thing you go and try to, accumulate wealth with, you're ultimately stuck with capital gains and paying that tax.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
literally, if you're have your house and you can find new ways to capitalize on the house you're in, you're going to get, if you've already lived in it for 2 years, I mean, you can already build that duplex and sell it. And you're talking $500,000 tax free. And that's
Yeah. Yeah.
you just can't bucket that. Tax free is amazing. What you have, I mean, having a tax problem is great, but
Yeah.
having the cash of which should warrant a tax problem and not having to pay tax is just an immense way to grow wealth because that's the point where you're saying, okay, now we can invest in real estate. Now we can invest in rentals because we have a house that's paid off. We have this core nest egg that we're living on and we can do it. So my advice is always do it the boring way. The house you're in
Yeah.
is probably the best investment you could really work on to grow wealth.
Especially if you have a large amount of equity. I mean, if your house you've been in for 15 years and it's grown a lot of value,
Exactly.
I mean, it's not a bad idea to access that equity and put it to work.
Exactly. Yep.
So, I mean, if you're just going to go buy a car with it, that's a dumb idea. But if you're going to
Exactly.
reinvest, have at it.
That's exactly.
You got to be able to work. You got to be able to work. If you're flipping your own house, is even better.
Exactly.
But
And that's where the project you take on is part of the mix, right? Because if you're
mhm,
saying, okay, I got this, I'm going to go buy a whole rental. And if you don't know anything about construction, you can't do any of the work yourself. I get it. That's fine. But if you can't, you're not going to make anything. I mean, you're literally paying labor to do all the work of anything you have. So by the time you bought this and you have this investment, I mean, you're probably going to have to bring money to the table over time. And that's where I
mhm,
say try to find a project that's smaller. And so if it's your house and you're only looking at a $10,000, even if you have to pay a contractor to come in and do part of that, that's something you can handle. You can be the
mhm,
general contractor, you can manage it in a small level. And so that's where
yeah,
I would think it would be the wiser one to kind of go after a smaller project that you can manage.
yeah. Or if the wife is patient enough and you're a bachelor, I'll redo the bathroom myself. And I'm going
Exactly.
to take 3 months to do it nice and long and learn.
Well, I told my son this. I was like, the great thing about you doing this versus a rental is you are your own customer. And there's
Yeah.
no one more accommodating to you as a business than if you are the customer. Because if
Hmm.
you have to build your own house, you're going to be patient to say, okay, well, I have 2 years I have to live in this. And so I will not, I'll be okay if it's gonna only be a boards. Like there's not gonna be no carpet yet. So I'll live on boards
Yeah.
and I'll have, a basic sink. Like you're gonna live with those things. And over time, you're gonna do as much as you can because you have 2 years to kind of fix it up. Whereas if it's a rental, nobody's gonna rent to it until it is ready to go. It has to be
Hmm.
top notch. And then once they start paying you, they're going to expect top notch. So you're jumping
Yeah.
into a different beast. Whereas if it's your own house and you're going to turn it into a duplex, you are the customer for that time. So you're like, okay, well, I can do this. If you're like, all right, well, if it's going to cost me 25,000, I'm going to hire someone to help me do all this. Okay, well, you can pick the time frame. So you can say, "Okay, I'm gonna I'm
Yeah.
gonna give myself 12 months, though. I'm not gonna try to do this over 1 month. That way I can just, do it as I save." So all those
Hmm.
things are just great advantages that you have to take it, that you can use in your toolbox.
Then you look at the bigger outfits that, well, this place will be built in a year, but you can put a deposit down now and you can pick the finishings.
Right.
That's a clever trick to get the
Exactly.
capital
You
rate
get the
up
money
front,
up
and then
front,
there you
yep,
go.
and you're stuck in for,
Get,
5 years
get her
later when they
done.
finally build your house.
Yeah. So you've got real estate all over the United States. How old were you when you went to Australia on your walkabout?
I had just turned 19.
So you're hustling real estate. You're bachelor, I'm assuming at that time, no
Yeah,
kids, and
yeah,
you're
no
let's go to
no
Australia and
kids.
have
In
some
fact,
fun.
that's one of the advantages I had, really. I mean, not only did my parents teach me to work and teach me construction, But when I got into it, I didn't have any stress, right? I was stress
Hmm.
free. I
Yeah.
could eat. I didn't. If you really think of what people are now sitting in the weight that they're sitting on trying to invest in real estate, I didn't have that. So I make sure to state, my advantages I did have going for me. But,
Yeah, and you grew up in a big family. I mean, you guys didn't grow up rich, so you never had those,
yeah,
inlaid expectations on how your life. You're ready to hustle. I mean, and you're
exactly.
earning money right out of the gate.
Yep,
So that's a great advantage that many do not have today.
exactly. Yep.
Lots do, but lots don't. So you go to Australia and I'm making passive income. I'm gonna
Well, I had to
go
learn the
backpack for
language
a while.
first. It took a little while to learn the language.
So the actual native
No,
language.
no,
No.
not sure.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
G'day, mate.
I didn't
G'day,
know.
mate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Good on you.
Right.
So where did you find the native community over in Australia?
So
Like
I
where?
originally started in Adelaide, and if you're familiar
Mhm.
with it's Austin's sister city, but it's gorgeous little city, but there's no surf. It's what they call the armpit of Australia. If you know Australia, it's kind of right here,
Yeah.
right across the bay from where they filmed a lot of the Jaws movies. There are a lot of great
Mhm.
whites in there, so they kind of live in that area. So not an
Mhm.
amazing surf hangout water place, but gorgeous nonetheless. Very similar to Austin as far as temperature, but
Mhm.
you go up from there, and it's lots of different Aboriginal tribes, what are we call mobs that live all through there, starting in Port Augusta, which is probably 3-4 hours north of Adelaide, and then you go up higher, and I served some time in Kubapiti, which is what they call the white man's hole in the ground. So
Yeah. So you
it's
went to Australia looking to do this?
I mean, I was there as a missionary, so we were really just doing
Okay.
service for 2 years, and most of that time, I mean, literally, you're just going around trying to help people and talk to people, and
Mhm.
so a lot of that time we spent out in the Aboriginal camps. And what's
Mm.
amazing is, especially as an American, um, it's even harder. But as a white person to be able to be, included and be welcomed into these camps, their reservations are even more secluded than the American reservations.
Mhm.
They're gated, they're guarded. So they're, you know, thousands, if not millions of acres out there that,
Mhm.
they've never been in. So for us to be welcomed in, it was an amazing experience. We really got to, live in and eat and dine and hang out with the Aboriginals for a long time. So we joke because you show up and you're in a white shirt and some slacks, and you don't notice, but you don't see it until you show up for the first time. But eventually, this tie disappears and the belt you lose, your pants get ripped, and
Yeah.
pretty soon you're walking around barefooted. And by the end of it, you don't even know, but what you think the whole time, you're like, oh, yeah, you got this really nice. Like you dress up, after being there for 3 months, but your shirt is red. You think it's white,
Yeah.
but it's just red. And so
Yeah.
you just become accustomed to the way. And, the Aboriginals have such a keen sense of importance. They don't have ownership. So it's similar to the Native American probably 50 years ago. I think the
Mhm.
US were a little farther along, you might say. I don't know how best to phrase that. But the Aboriginals are the climate's really nice, so they'd build these houses, and they'd be like, "Why do you have a house?" So they pull the mattresses and slowly burn the house as firewood out in the front yard, because they're
Jeez.
like, "Well, what's this? Why do you stack your wood this way?" But they buy them brand new Hilux trucks, and they drive them till they run out of gas. And then if you happen to walk along with the tank of gas and you fill it up and drive it off, they're like, "Great." I mean,
Yeah.
so the sense of ownership is not there, but the sense of community is. And
Yeah.
that's just something that will never leave me. It's always, on my mind thinking about that of, how I wish more of the world was kind of, in this sense where you could really sit there, you don't have the internet, you're not going to have a
Mhm.
phone, you're not going to have anything, just each other and literally just your conversation with each other, taking care of each other. I mean, there's no better sense of community that I learned than there. And that's really what brought me to say, man, I am in the deepest, richest cultures, one of the longest um, existing continual culture is in Australia.
Mhm.
And it made me really appreciate, like, how I took for granted what I grew up in. So, just an amazing, amazing place with lots of great stuff to learn and,
Yeah, and
but
2 years clicked by there and
yeah.
roughing it.
Yeah, I did start a small little opal mining operation, but, it did not go over so well. So,
No.
many losses around the way. So I got back from
Yeah.
there, and when I got back, my brother had spent some time in Brazil, and that,
Mhm.
is really what convinced me to say, "Hey," and, he spoke the language, Portuguese, and it sounded exciting. And I take that back. I actually did that before when we started, but when I got back from Australia, we went back down to do, the
Mhm.
Brazilian homes, and, uh, they build everything out of bricks down there, and so for us to bring the idea of saying, "Hey, how about we build them like American homes out of wood?" And that's, like,
Yeah.
mind blowing. They're like, "We have termites." It's like, "So do we." So
Yeah.
so we started building homes. We originally imported everything, and it's weird because you come out with marble countertops, tile roofs, gorgeous oak beams, and mahogany beams that are like,
Mhm.
polished, and nobody wanted it. They wanted sheetrock with orange peel uh, texture. They wanted Formica countertops, linoleum
Yeah.
flooring, because that's what American homes were, and they weren't used to it. So it did blow our minds what was selling down there is the worst of what we have. And so, but it
Cost per square foot was low.
yeah, exactly. So for them, but what's more interesting, we'd ship all this stuff in all these containers and, pay the tariffs, get it all in, distribute it, and slowly we're trying to find where we can save costs. Turns out we could buy everything down there. So you can get all the wood, the
Mhm.
insulation, sheetrock out of Brazil, Ecuador, Paraguay, and Uruguay. We'd get a lot of the fixtures like the hot water heaters, the air conditioners. So eventually we weren't importing anything anymore. We were getting everything
Mhm.
down there. So it's such an amazing place with resources where they were shipping them to us, and then
Yeah.
we were, of course, shipping them back down. So finding that out was interesting, but a great opportunity to kind of learn about the Brazilian culture and do a lot of business as far as building homes and stuff down there.
So you had kind of did you start a real estate company down there? You had a company in
Yeah.
Brazil that you did sell
So
or get out
so
of?
yeah, the Brazilian version of it was debegraus, which means sheetrock, and
Mhm.
one of the partners, really, it's my brother's original partner, and he had a sheetrock company. That's what he was starting to try to get into and try to get people to use sheetrock. And then we ended up starting a company parallel to that, basically the American version of that. And it
Mhm.
would come in, buy the land, actually build the houses and finance the selling part and do things like that. So I ended up
Yeah.
selling out of that in 2001 time period. Um,
So you're in there for a bit
for a
then.
little while.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, a great experience. I didn't make any money, but
No. Learning, that's half of, building
there
businesses
are
is a learning
things. One of
experience.
the major things that happened down there is the president changed a rule that the government controlled all the interest rates. They were the bank of lender at the time.
Yeah.
And they changed a rule that they would not finance a wood-built home. And that was not great timing for us. We were a small player, very small player. We're talking like
Mhm.
10 to 20 homes. But
Yeah.
there were some American companies coming in building thousands, and
Mhm.
this policy was aimed at trying to get them out and kinda
Mm.
took us with it. So after all was said and done, we made money on the first ones, but we had the rest of them still down there ready to go, almost ready to be, moved into, and that just kinda pulled the rug under us. So they sat down
Yeah.
there for a good 10 years or something, I think, before we
Oh.
eventually found people just to take them. So
Yeah.
yeah, you learn live and learn, live and learn.
So you've took your licks, you've taken your licks, it hasn't all been a
Right.
win. So you came back, your tail a little bit between your legs, but you're still at home doing real estate, and then, you keep growing the real estate and you venture off into other avenues. When did that start for you?
So, I mean, almost right away, when I was younger, part I kinda skipped is I started buying and selling these houses a lot, And I got to the point where I would do nothing to them. I would buy it and I would try to think of how I was gonna sell it to make sure I made that deal easiest to structure, so that's how I bought it, so it was easy to sell, and then I would sell it
Mhm.
as a fixer-upper. So and what I mean by that is, there's tax advantages like capital gains. You can take a capital gains tax advantage. I would try to sell so the way capital gains works is it's based on the total price. It does not
Mhm.
include interest. It's an important fact.
Mhm.
Because if I sell the house for $3,000 less than I bought it, I have a $3,000 capital loss, which is
Mhm.
fantastic to have. Of course, people are like, "Well, you're an idiot because why would you you're just taking loss of the money." What I would do is I would say, "Okay, but I'm gonna do the owner financing," and I made sure to work on owner financing. So when I buy the house, I might put in, say, "All right, I'm gonna do this at 8%, and this is the 90s." So I know 8% would not
Yeah.
be believable now, but this was a really good rate then. So I
Yeah.
would say, okay, I'm gonna buy 8% and a 10-year loan. Then I would sell it, and I would sell it saying, okay, I'm gonna owner finance this for you. It's a fixer upper, but I'm gonna carry it. So I'll do a 10% rate for 15 years. And that spread ends up, being, in those days, it was like the house was like 45 to 55,000. So we're
Mhm.
not talking half
Yeah.
a million, it'd been even greater. But the spread over time equates to, around $20,000. So I take a capital loss. And then over the 15 years, after the first 10, I'm making all the payment, but eventually, that grows a lot. So I started doing lots of those, and so it started to
Mhm.
produce quite a bit of income. Not each deal was a small amount, but they added up to
Mhm.
a large pool. So after Brazil, I sold some of those to finance our Brazil deal. And then
Mhm.
when I came back, I still had some of those. Luckily, I didn't sell
Yeah.
out of all of them. So when I had those, that really kind of kicked off the next piece. And I just started originally buying fixer uppers. This is the 2000, 1 to 2003 time period. And
Mhm.
at that time, I mean, real estate was just inching along. If we all remember,
Mhm.
2005 was like this astronomical peak where it was just like you could just not go wrong. Things just kept growing.
Yeah.
And so I was fortunate to really have bought a lot in 2001, 2002, and 2003. I just kept buying anything I can. We were fixing up. And eventually we were selling them. We are fixing them up and selling them. But I had people start to approach me that were paying me, that were making offers like 20 to 30 more than I just bought it. And so I'm like,
Mhm.
"Ugh, this is happening again, but in a different way." And
Mhm.
not as many, banks were very liquid. So all of your offers became cash because they were coming from the bank now. Nobody needed to carry a loan anymore. Cash was liquid.
Mhm.
So then I said, okay, we're not selling anything anymore because if they're growing that much, there's no sense in selling these. Like just hold them. And so
Yeah.
I started finding banks. I worked with Wells Fargo at the time, and I brought a whole bunch of houses together and put together one big loan. And the loan covered where I would go and buy all of their foreclosure houses in that area, in the
Mhm.
area, and this time I was in Eugene. So I just bought anything they had and would pull it under this loan, and they'd finance it for me, and we'd fix it up, and to hold it, it would be a rental. So that started to turn into a
Mhm.
rental business. And so here I was sitting on, we had to buy a house, we had to remodel. So we had this little remodel company, a crew going around and fixing up these houses, and we
Mhm.
had so many of them. And then we now had property management to deal with because we're renting them, so people are living in them. And then, of course, we had houses before that we were selling, and then it was going. I was like, man, this is just growing so fast. This is crazy. Doesn't make sense. I was like, we got to get in even more upstream. So then where do you go? You buy land. So we started buying land and we developed the land. And so we
Mhm.
did about 3 different subdivisions, and those worked out fantastic. We got most of them because around like, to be honest, in 2005 is when I really it was obvious. Houses that I mean, there were just so many builders, so many houses were going up. But if you went around to see what they were selling, they were like, to make sweeten the deal, they'd be like, here's a TV, washer and dryer. And I'm like, even though the price is higher, that's a discount. And so when you
Mhm.
start to see that, you say, okay, that means the market is having problems moving this, right?
Mhm.
So it's definitely, what I would have said that's a peak is you can start to see prices coming down in the sense that they're adding things to it to avoid the price from actually the ticket
So
price
just
going
as
down.
you're rolling along through these years, personally, you're not probably paying yourself much. You're not
Oh
living
heavens,
in
no. No.
millionaire's row. You are reinvesting
Now,
every dollar you make. You're growing this business,
the
hey?
other part
Or
that's really
starting out.
important and this is really where the true wealth came from, and this is why I pitched this in the beginning, is
Mhm.
I built my own house. My
Yeah.
first house, I literally did everything. I had a couple of
Yeah.
guys come and help me lift the walls, and a couple of things where I physically, could not do it. But other than that, I did, the excavation, I did the foundation, I did the electrical, the plumbing, the heating, insulation, the roofing, the
Yeah.
siding, everything, even down to the finish work. So I did all of it, and I was in that house for 130. We ended up selling that house for like 320 or something. And again, that
Yeah.
in those days, that was a lot. I mean, that was financing me, but
Yeah.
that was all tax free after 2 years. Then I did it again. And the next
Yeah.
house, we were all in it, land and everything, like 300 and sold it for almost five. And so, but
Yeah.
what's great is in the 2 years, I was leveraging myself up,
Yeah.
buying all these rentals and doing all this stuff. And I would take the cash when I sold that. And that's what helped me deleverage and have this room to grow. So definitely not paying myself much. The only thing I was is I was living in these nicer houses for a short time because
Yeah.
the 2 years
But
to
hard
finish
work.
it, it was not like I
Yeah.
finished it amazing house and lived in it for
Yeah.
2 years. It's like I told my son, you have 2 years to make it what you're ultimately.
Yeah.
And I know it's frustrating for those who live with me because they're like, now that you finally got it ready, it's amazing. We have to sell it. I was like, yeah, that's the game. so,
Yeah. That's
so
the
you're
game. No, but hard work. Like you didn't just sit around clicking the
exactly,
mouse, buying and
exactly. Well,
selling.
you're trying to take advantage of every opportunity you
Yeah.
can at the same time. So I was going to school and trying to run all these at the same time
Oh
and
man.
trying to build this house every 2 years. But if you really, I was fortunate enough to have done it at that time because, like I said, from the 2001 to the 2000
Mhm.
time period, I mean, things literally doubled. And that created this just huge nest egg on top of me trying to build all these out that allowed me now. Because if you go now into 2008, and
Yeah,
I
let's hear it.
started to see things change, like I said, in 2005. So in 2007, I finally graduated from University of Oregon. So, that
Are you a realtor?
no, no, heavens no,
You
heavens
don't
no.
even have your real estate
No,
license
no
yet.
realtor, no realtor, just
That's funny.
entrepreneur. But I studied
Yeah.
economics in University of Oregon. So I graduated in 2007, and we're building all these developments. But I had told them in 2006, I told all the crews, we're not going to buy any more land because 2005 it was obvious the prices were going down. It's like we need to build out everything we have and get rid of it as fast as we can. And 2007, I had done this research to say, okay, if a massive bubble were to pop in real estate, what would hold it and why? And I narrowed it down to Austin, Texas, Charlotte, North Carolina, and Fort Collins, Colorado. And then each of those towns have reasons of why they would sustain it the most. We checked them all out. We really liked Austin. And so I made
Mhm.
it a strategy in 2007. It's like, we're moving to Austin and we're going to try to 1031 every bit of real estate we can out of Oregon and to move it to
Mhm.
Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
We did not make it, but we got a lot of it down here. But we did
Yeah.
not make it all. By the time 2008, I was sitting down here. We were living here about 6 months. I read the paper, and I remember reading about Bear Stearns, and that was just the start. And I was just like, "It's about to happen. This is awful." And even though, like
Yeah.
in my mind, I knew something was coming, it was like when it actually happened, it was awful. So I got stuck. We were fortunate over the next 2 years, we still had to build out what we had left. The crews were reducing, but we sold our last four houses at a loss. But overall, it
Mhm.
was pretty good. I would say we did pretty well that we only sold four of them at a loss, but some people got some
Yeah.
great deals on those houses. Now,
And how many properties did you have around then? How large were you?
a lot. I
Yeah, like we're in the hundreds now, or
Yeah, we're past the
yeah,
hundreds. Yeah, well
yeah.
into the
So
hundreds. So yeah.
yeah, so 4 properties, you're
And the
laughing, really.
hard part is a lot of them were in single family rentals, so that's a bit of a frustration, and so trying to unwind those over those years was not easy because I was trying to unwind them, put them in a 1031, build them up, and then
Hmm.
buy apartment complexes here, and that
Hmm.
was not an easy thing. It took a lot of time. Where if it was one property and I'm trying to move it to another bigger property, that's easier, but I was trying to bulk
Yeah.
up and all in the same transaction, so that took a little while, but it worked out well. And if you know hindsight, Austin didn't drop in real estate prices at all. It
Really.
didn't go up, but it didn't go down. So in
Yeah.
2008 to 2012, it really just stayed flat. Rents
Yeah.
weren't amazing. I'll be honest. I had a couple of properties, a couple apartment buildings that we bought, and I had learned there's working class neighborhoods, but then there's also a little lower one where
Yeah.
everybody moves in together. Now it took me
Yeah.
by shock where
Yeah.
I was basically asking people to live in them just so they weren't squatted. It's like you
Yeah.
can live for
Yeah.
free,
Yeah.
but now they've come out, and then Austin has taken off in the last 5 years, and it's gone crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's turned out. But I still have some in Oregon that I couldn't unwind,
Hmm.
and so those I didn't sell them. I just held on to them, and their values dropped during that time, but I didn't sell them, so I've held on. Now they've done really well. So it's
Hmm.
another lesson to learn real estate. If you hold on long enough, it eventually comes back around. So
You never went to Detroit at all?
I had heard so many things about Detroit. So many things make me want to go there, but I just have not jumped in. I mean, there were times where it's like, $2,000 for a house.
Yeah.
And I've talked to a few people that have bought some of those. So it's still
Trump's gonna make it great again. Get in there,
yeah,
start
that's
buying.
exactly right. Yes.
Real estate dream.
Yes. I think it's the only city we
Wait
have in
and
this
see.
country we've actually started to destroy neighborhoods to try to,
Oh,
shrink and manage the city. So, but I hear
man,
now
I
it's
think it
pretty nice,
ever.
but you could still buy a house like for 150, so
Yeah.
from what I hear, Detroit's a nice place to be now. Now they've kind of shrunk it down a little bit.
When you're scrolling your Instagram and you see those real cheap houses in Texas that are look like a mansion for $300,000, what's going
So
on there?
that is what it was like when I moved here in 2007.
Yeah.
It was mind blowing because we moved here, and this is Austin, Texas.
Hmm.
You could get 1,500 square foot, two-car garage, nice yard, great neighborhood with a pool for 150,000 then.
Yeah.
I I'm mixing this up. That's 3,000 square feet. 3,000
Hmm.
square feet for about 150,000. It was just unbelievable. And now that same house would cost you 1,000,000. But
Yeah.
the farther away from Austin you get, you can find, these houses. We were just in Georgetown yesterday for my daughter's soccer game, and you can still find, 3 to 400,000. You can find that same house now in Georgetown, which is not Austin, even though it's now considered a
No.
suburb of Austin. But that's a 45-minute drive north without traffic.
Yeah. Well, people say, well, that's because it's a neighborhood it's in or something like that. It's not all cracked up to be, or there's bidding wars on those houses above the list price.
There's some. I mean, real
Sometimes they
estate
get
is
into
tight,
that.
but there's places all over
Yeah.
the country. It's really a question of will you live there?
Hmm.
That's really the question. And I wouldn't say, I mean, in Austin proper, that doesn't exist.
Hmm.
Austin, Dallas, and Houston are just keep growing, right?
Hmm.
But you can go now, and they just have these sprawling. So if you have to commute, oh, you're stuck, because commuting is the trade-off between what will you pay for your house and convenience,
Hmm.
right? You're going to spend 2 hours in traffic. You can get a really cheap house. And if
Hmm.
you want to spend 15 minutes in traffic, then you're going to get a really crappy house, but you're going to pay a lot for it. And those are your
Yeah. Yeah.
trade-offs, right? It's your
Yeah.
time. But now that remote world happens, a lot of people can live in this, all they need is a Starlink satellite and they can get away with a lot.
Hmm.
So in those cases, there's places in Ohio, there's all kinds of places in Texas. If you get out far enough,
Yeah.
you can't be on a lake because those places are all gone now. But
Yeah.
there's lots of places out there where you can get, a great deal on a house. Now, the thing you have to balance is those are the places that property, if you look at the value, it hasn't increased a lot.
Hmm.
And so if you buy don't expect it to increase a lot. It's
Yeah.
that's the reason
Yeah,
we're
they're
getting a deal is because there's not a lot of demand, but there is demand. So it's
yeah.
really a balance. Like, do you just want an affordable house to raise your kids or to have, a good lifestyle? Then that's if that's the question, then that is a great answer, and you can find that for sure. But the problem is a lot of people are looking for, I want to buy an investment, and
Yeah.
those are not the same thing. So that's why when you're looking
No.
at it is really what do you want out of this to what you're gonna try to get into. So
Yeah, if you can break even a lot of it, especially where I'm from, like, rural Saskatchewan. Yeah, I got Saskatoon, Regina. You might have heard of those cities, but actually, people have made a lot of money there because those are the two that are growing a lot. There's a lot of just cookie cutter houses being slammed up in Saskatoon to facilitate the growing population.
yeah.
Everybody's coming in from all over the world. So the builders are making out like a bandit because this is, government grants funding a lot of this and they're just
Wow.
cranking them out. So they're doing good there. But to go and build a, $500,000 house and try to sell it, unless you're building it like you do, good
Wow, so you
luck.
need a president who's gonna stop corporations from buying single family homes. That'll fix everything. So
Yeah, 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 I know. Well, I don't know what to do. People are coming in, and all these houses are selling. You see a lot of people coming in from other countries, and they are selling and filling these houses. But those people are all working. They're not sitting on their butts either. They're out there grinding. So you can't knock on them for it. The builders are making out well. Getting on the ground floor is tricky though. To be those people that get that land early and get in there, like you got to know people.
well, it's not just know
But
people, it's expensive. I mean,
it's
it takes
expensive.
costs. Like we're doing one in Lowell, Oregon, which is like 30 minutes outside of Eugene. And
Hmm.
I think it's almost 100 homes in there.
Hmm.
And we had to buy all the land. And it's gonna take us, like, 3 years now and counting to work with the city, to ultimately get everybody on board. You gotta figure out, like, "Alright,
Hmm.
how's this gonna impact the schools? Where are we gonna get all the water? How are they gonna run?"
Yeah.
They literally this is one of the issues is, "Alright, well, we only have 1 fire truck, and it doesn't have a ladder. So we gotta help.
Oh.
Alright, well, let's help figure out how we can get you, like, a fire truck with a big ladder because that changes our
Oh.
costs." So we're like, "If we buy you one, then we know how okay, so we'll figure this out." So those are the things. I mean, that's a same scale, but in any city you have that. In Austin, they were trying to expand, but they had to figure out, all right, well, how do we actually get all these homes water? And so even though it
Yeah.
sounds light and easy to get in, it's a lot of money to get into the land to get it to the point where, others can now buy it. In fact, Austin, under our big lake, which is Lake Travis, many don't know this, there's a gigantic tunnel that is about to be finished. And the huge
Right.
tunnel is just to fill up with water. So,
Just have reserve.
yep, just to have a big reserve. So it's actually for the northern part of Austin apparently, but, yeah.
Yeah. Are you seeing like the Vancouver issue where a lot of it's just regulatory costs to get a home built or get properties built?
There is no question that is out there. And so this is
Yeah.
where I honestly am like, there's so many issues with the White House right now that they're detached from reality, but
Is this how you got into government? Is you were so sick of all that crap?
I wish I could say it was, if I should be way deep in government if that was true because
Yeah. Yeah.
it's so bad now. But, first, the idea I mean, corporations only own about 4% of single family rentals, and they're in specific
Hmm.
cities. So the fact that you were to stop them from doing anything won't have much of an impact. In fact,
Hmm.
they buy most spec homes. So that means a
Hmm.
lot of your developers who are building speculation houses to sell them probably aren't gonna build them, so you'll probably have less. But regulation in general, really where it comes down to is your water meter, your sewer, what you call your tapping fee,
Hmm.
your building permits, right? Well, just in the city of Eugene, just to get those going for the average house, you're looking at like $45,000.
Oh,
That's crazy.
what a money grab.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, my son's looking at doing one in Colorado and inside of Lakewood, which is just a suburb outside of Denver, the tapping fee. That means just they don't actually do anything. Like they're not gonna dig it up. This is just like they call it your tapping fee because they're like, this is the meter drop to join the community. If you want to build a
Yeah.
house, pay this amount. It's 30 grand.
Oh,
You don't get anything for it. That's just that. Then you still have to pay for the water meter. You have to pay to get the water meter in. You still got to pay to get the transformer, figure out the electricity. You still got to figure out how to get the wastewater and the sewer hooked up. So, and a lot of times the developer is having to, front these costs, and then you'll have them separate. So that's what's weird. Is the costs are already paid for.
yeah.
These are literally just a tax on the community for growth. So the city is saying like, hey, we can use new building. Now, Eugene and Portland are unique. They're very liberal communities.
Mhm.
And they have used this in a different way, which is similar to what California did. They saw it as a way to stop growth. So Portland
Mm.
even put in a moratorium on building completely and said, you can't build in this area at all. And slowly they've learned that rent controls don't work and trying to control things in that fashion don't work. So finally they've said, oh, the problem's supply. Oh, that makes sense. So now they've gone the way of the ADU and they're trying to drop regulation now and say, okay, build more, build more. So it's
Yeah.
funny how it's totally flipped around as they've woken up to say it's, if you want to lower the cost of living, then have more houses. That's
Yeah.
that's that's the way to give it to the landlord. Then they can lose all the value they want, but there's more supply that is needed. So that's out there. But most of the regulation is really around these upfront costs. If they
Yeah.
want people to do it, for example, what I talked about, if I were to turn my 2-car garage in part of my house, I mean, if I have to go through a permit process, I mean, that's gonna change those costs. I mean, you're probably looking at about $40,000 just in the fee to get that done.
Oh,
And that's ridiculous. So,
they better have
there's
a nice fire truck.
there's no yeah, exactly. They better have 2 ladders on that fire truck and a
Yeah.
fire hydrant coming out the front of it. So,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
yeah, that's cost prohibitive. And
Mhm.
if you really want to see a lot of building coming on, there's easy ways to lower those costs that don't impact a lot of the city.
Mhm.
And that's what they need to do. Because if you calculate the same growth on your property taxes, you'll make it up. And so having
Yeah.
these upfront costs to builders means the builders are now stuck having to pay that. So they got to come up with more money. So it's a bigger risk. So they do
Mhm.
fewer deals and they build you less houses. And so
Mhm. So do you build any commercial real estate, or are you private home
um,
focused?
I mean, only
Duplexes,
commercial
fourplexes, yeah.
commercial in the sense that, fiveplex is considered commercial, but
Yeah.
no. So I stay all in residential.
Yeah. And so you Austin, so you survived 2008. Then you start probably are you able to buy some of these discounted
So
homes?
I
Did
I
you luck
did,
out?
not as many as I would have liked, but I
Yeah.
I I did get to come on the back of when things were coming down, so we bought some in Utah, Arizona at the time, and
Yeah.
so able to take a little bit advantage as markets were going down.
Yeah.
But not as much as I would have liked because Wells Fargo decided to say, even though you're granted under the loan agreement, we're calling your loan due. So I was
Oof.
like, what? It was a total surprise call to me. And I had to change a lot of things to take what I thought was going to be, a long-term loan for almost 10 million. And I was going to have it be much longer than, the
Yeah.
2 years we had put it into. I knew it'd have a higher interest rate because that's where the market was going. But I did plan on it being long term. So that shook me up a little bit more than I would have liked during that
Mhm.
time where I had to come up with a lot of cash and even sell some of the real estate to get into it. And so I
But
was asset rich and very cash poor at that time.
that's how you wanna be, that's good.
I guess. But I wish there was so many times where I'm like, "Oh, man, I wish I could buy this and buy that." It was just
Yeah.
unbelievable the way things were going down, and if you're in the market, you just know, you're like, "This is I cannot build this house for this price again." So there's no
Mhm.
question this will have to go up. This is a great piece of property. So many times you just saw that, and unfortunately, you had to just sit many out. So that was a hard time. That was definitely
You
the toughest
survived.
one. So, d yeah, survived.
Lots didn't, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean,
But
the
yeah.
positive side, it brought me on the other side where I'm not very leveraged at all now. So
Yeah.
I mean, you have some wins, you win some losses, so
Takes a long grind to get to the point where you actually have liquid to use because you wanna spend other people's money to
yes,
develop these projects
exactly, exactly. No, I
if
I
you can get
I
it.
grew up in real estate, I loved real estate, but I did kind of stumble into the world of tech. And
Right.
so that has changed my perspective on real estate in general altogether. I still like it. I still dabble in it, but I now know, like, if I have 2 pots of money and I have
Mhm.
to put it to work, for every dollar I put into tech growing this tech company, it will come back about 100-fold. For every
Mhm.
dollar I put into real estate, it'll come back about twofold. So
Yeah.
so now I know I do real estate because I really like it.
Yeah.
It's there's a great way to learn. I try to get my kids into it.
Mhm.
Like, I can't say to them, "Goes this way you need to do. Look at tech. Tech is a place." I can't do that. You have to learn it. You must understand it, or it's just philanthropy. And so
Yeah.
real estate is different. You can learn, and it's something, physical. You can see it, you can understand how it grows. So there's the
And
balance of
probably a little
things.
safer.
Much
A little
safer.
safer. I mean,
That's
coming up with the bank's not gonna give you $500,000 to go build an app because you think it's
exactly.
gonna be
Yeah, you're
awesome.
not gonna get a loan at all. 0 loans. So
So what was your first forte into that? Was it the tenant app you had?
so it was actually called
Or not app, but
Ferrent.com, and
mhm,
Ferrent.com I built for me in Oregon with my property management. I
mhm,
When I went to school, even though I ended up graduating economics and focused on economics and loved math, and that was
yeah,
my thing. When I was about 14, I started at OIT. So I started at this little community college there in Klamath Falls, and it was like the first time people had ever had the internet. Email was brand new.
yeah,
I remember my first email, that
yeah,
was amazing, and to log in, it was like, it's like, very
yeah.
early. I'm definitely dating myself there, but I learned C++ plus plus as my first programming language I learned. And what's funny is, even though I do 0 coding now, I'm so tech illiterate now, just based on
Mhm,
how things go and who's most efficient, and I'm not that guy. I need to be focused on other things. But C++ plus plus has stuck around a long time. So it is
yeah,
fun that every once in a while I could dive in and I'll be like, "All right, well, I see what's going on here. I'm not gonna touch anything."
yeah,
So I can see.
yeah,
But, Ferrent.com is one I built for myself and my own rentals, and, and really it was just saying there was nothing for the DIY landlords. I had multifamily properties, and we were using that. There's a company, Yardi. There's Yardi and RealPage.
mhm,
They're like the 2 kings of property management, and then there are some couple of new kids on the block,
mhm.
RealPage, or not RealPage, Appfolio and Buildium. They were like the cool new hip kids, but they were doing the smaller ones. But all of them built for property managers.
What year are we in here
That
right
that
now?
would have been 2005-ish, around then.
Right.
So
Okay.
Buildium and Appfolio are both somewhat new, and, Yardi's been around since the '80s, but the king and RealPage came in hard out of Dallas to really compete with them, and they're doing the big, it's multifamily. You have thousands of
Yeah.
rentals, and it's a fancy spreadsheet, really is what they did. So I built
Mhm.
Ferrent.com, which was a place you could log in, you could pay me rent with a digital paper check, and you could send me a message and tell me about a maintenance issue they did, and then I would respond and set things up, and it was just like an interface. So when I moved to Austin, the properties that I couldn't move, I put them into a property management company that I didn't own. I ended up transferring them to a private one. I didn't want to run it from
Mhm.
here, so I really
Mhm.
shut down Fairrent.com. It was over.
Yeah.
That was the end of it. Never thought about it. Then, after a time with the governor, and really it was with Governor Perry, I ran a lot of the funds, and I wouldn't say most, but a section of those funds were on early stage startups.
How'd you get in with him?
As an intern, actually. So I came to
Okay.
Texas to go to UT. I loved economics. I wanted to be in the Dallas Federal Reserve.
Mhm.
And Dallas Federal Reserve, if you know about the Federal Reserve and the Federal Reserve banks, um, what the Dallas Federal Reserve puts together is the actual calculation for inflation, the trim
Mhm.
PCE. The trim PCE is what they truly use, even though everybody talks about the PCI. That's just a
Right.
fake number. I mean, it's
Okay.
not that it's fake; it's the one that the news loves. But the trim PC is the one they actually use. So all the meat is really coming out of Dallas. So to do that, I was like, all right, well, I gotta do a little more at UT. So in the meantime, I was like, oh, this is internship at the governor's office. That'll help me. It'll be great. I'll do it. Do 'em. So real estate was like my stepping stone to try to get somewhere.
Yeah.
So I took this internship, and right when I started LIBOR, if you remember LIBOR, it still
Mhm.
operates, but we don't care about the British anymore. So LIBOR shot to like 8.5%. It was this huge shock that sent everywhere. And they had managed these two funds that were tied to LIBOR. And that was like day one, a massive panic of they have all these funds and what are they going to do with them? So I sat down, I started doing all this analysis. It took me like 3 weeks to get through it. I was very new, but then I presented to them all. I said, actually, you all are going to make money from this. So I
Yeah.
showed them, if we do this, if we change that, you'll end up. And so they were looking at either retiring the bonds completely or reusing them, and they found they could make a lot of money. So that turned into me getting a full-time position, and
Yeah.
short time after managing, basically they managed about $2 billion, and I
Yeah.
managed all of it except for this 200 million. That was a caveat for early stage startups.
Mhm.
And these other funds are different. They're used for economic development. That's really, if you find any job, any politician, the reason they bring in these offices into their office is because the word jobs are like crack cocaine to politicians,
Yeah.
right? They just want to say
Yeah.
the word jobs as many times as they can.
Yeah.
So a lot of these funds were designed to, recruit uh, big businesses. We brought in
Mhm.
Toyota to San Antonio. We brought in Caterpillar, a number of factories in Caterpillar. So we're bringing in these companies that bring, a lot of jobs. And so they're all designed
Mhm.
for that. And there are different metrics to help, put those together. So that's what they were designed around. And it's how I, built the models that they could ultimately, make money off of this.
Mhm.
The state is not us. I mean, not the governor himself. It would be the state
Mhm.
would have a benefit from them. So I want to be clear on what I'm saying there.
Mhm.
But while I was in the office, I mean, that's an interesting conversation of itself. But to the tech startups, I started noticing like the fund that was being managed there just didn't make any sense. So I'm watching all these tech startups. It's called the Emerging Tech Fund. It's Texas's biggest effort to really go after early stage startups. And it's Austin before Austin. It's actually the fund of how Austin got its first little blip on the tech radar,
Mhm.
because you can go to Texas and man, they'll give you free money. So in the private
Yeah.
sector, it was like, man, the governor's office, they are morons because you can go in and they'll give you like a $50 million valuation, and which is basically a grant. So they're giving away these
Yeah.
grants because they have no idea what they're doing, but they would
Yeah.
pretend like they're like venture capitalists run around. And it just didn't make sense because I'm like, well, why don't you have a venture capitalist running that? So oddly enough, the governor ran. I was with him for one gubernatorial race, which he was the longest serving governor in Texas. I think Greg Abbott's pushing to pass him now,
Yeah.
but he was longest serving governor in Texas. And then I was with him through one presidential bid, so,
Mhm.
which didn't end well.
No.
Um, but after that, Obama was elected, and he created in 2010 what's called the Small Business Credit Initiative, and that allocated about $50 million to Texas. What was unique about it is, and at the time the governor was running, and so uh, while he was running, he's like, "We can't keep this money because I just told everybody we don't need federal money, but we're not giving it back." So I had to go find a place to that would take this money. And long story, it ended up being a program under the Obama administration, under the
Yeah.
Small Business Administration. And why this program was unique is it was really designed to be a fund of funds. So it's to work with venture capitalists, put state dollars to work that are trying to grow jobs, and we won't pay a management fee. And we need the money
Mhm.
back as fast as we can so we can do it again. And so it changes. I mean, I won't get into details, but it changes the metrics for the VCs to where they now have an incentive to raise this fund. It helps emerging managers. So because of that fund, we have quite a few of the venture capitalists that are here in Austin are because of that fund. And they
Mhm.
funded a lot of those companies. Their focus was to be on Texas. So you see, I mean, the fund was by far the most effective fund as far as job creation that has ever existed. It was an
Mhm.
evergreen fund, so it was designed to bring back all the money, and it did. And unfortunately, where it sat was in the Department of Agriculture, and so as soon as the money came back, the commissioner could do with it whatever he wanted. And unfortunately, he wanted to put it into horses. So that was
Oh,
the end of it. But that ride over a period of about 5 years
yeah.
landed me very deep in the investor tech world.
Mhm.
And that was really the learning curve. When I was an organ, learned about this word angel investor because I had invested in a
Mhm.
bean farm and I did it by a loan. And he ended up hitting big. And the bean farms actually fluctuate based on prices. It's a commodity.
Mhm.
And it
Mhm.
was sad that I just got my loan back and he got so much money. So that's what made me learn about equity. I was like, wait a minute, what if I would have done equity? And I found out, I was thinking I was so smart doing a loan, and
Yeah.
this equity was a whole new world. So that's what led me into angel. So after this time with the governor and managing what was the J4T fund, I was very versed in tech all over the country and seeing deals. And this is where, the market had come around and I still had these rentals that I was trying to manage myself in part, and in some places using property manager. It was just chaos. And I had built my
Mhm.
own thing in Excel again, just to like actually was in Google Sheets to kind of manage them. So
Yeah.
the reason it was Google Sheets, so we could all open it and run off the same page,
Yeah.
the property manager and the maintenance guy. So from there, I'm just like, man, there's nothing out there for the DIY landlord to do any of this. Like
Yeah.
nothing exists. There were a few companies that did paper check, but they were breaking the laws. I had now well known there were
Mm.
interstate banking laws. If you're going to transfer money across state line, it's a whole different beast. If you're going to do it in the state, that's one thing, but once you cross the line, and so I was like, all these are going to go away. I mean, they're the closest thing to, at the time, there was Williams Paid, and that's what they did. It was the most popular one. And it was just
Mhm.
like what I had built on fairrent.com. It's a paper check, you enter it, you just send it away. So that showed me there was an opportunity for guys like me. So then I just started
Mhm.
digging into the market. Like, how big is that market? Like, is it even something worth going after? And it took me a while to find that data. But once I did, 70% of all rentals are single family rentals,
Mhm.
and 75% of those are DIY landlords. And that blew my mind. That means
Yeah.
close to 60% of all the rent transacted in this country are by just us, everyday people.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, there's no software for these people. This is unbelievable. So that's what ultimately sent me on saying, all right, I'm building Tenant Cloud. I already know exactly what I need to build. We
Yeah.
started with Barrett. And so we built out this entire infrastructure. It's what got me into Ukraine for the first time. Instead of starting from scratch, I already knew the tech world. So I went to 3 cities where I knew there were some companies that had basically tried and failed. So I bought one of their
Yeah.
shells and I said, let's go from here and let's keep building on. So it brought me to Chicago. There were a couple of guys who turns out to be, they were Ukrainian and they had a team in Ukraine. And so we were going to move them all to Austin. And by that, I mean, just hire people in Austin.
So these guys were real estate guys
No,
from
they were all
Ukraine?
tech,
No.
all tech.
Okay.
These are the
Okay.
software developers that we,
Right.
were gonna do it here in Austin, but they were running loops around them in
Yeah.
Ukraine. So then got on a plane, met these people, and just phenomenal talent that is coming out of
Yeah.
Ukraine. So that's really the start of
Mhm.
it, and Tenant Cloud went on. So Tenant Cloud, it's property management software for the DIY landlord. So you can do everything in it, lots of tools. And went on, College Pad, Show Mojo, Tenant Turner, Property Tech, Rentler.
A
So I went on to
and are
do
you
all those
selling
brands.
these?
So I sold to a private equity firm in 2021. So they bought a majority stake in it and then
Mhm.
left beginning of 2023.
That was just Tenant Cloud, or that was a
All of them. I mean,
umbrella? All of
that's
them.
one big
Yeah.
portfolio
Yeah.
that we had acquired.
Yeah.
So yeah. So 2023, I stepped away from there and started Loco was really the next one.
And Loca is what?
So Loca, the problem that exists here is that if you just take the city of Austin, City of Austin, and this is the same world around, but just as an
Mm-hmm.
example, Austin, we're like 1.5 million people, but
Mm-hmm.
there's 200 multinational corporations here, and they all have billion-dollar budgets and thousands of locations. So we're talking
Mm-hmm.
Starbucks, McDonald's, Chipotle. In the same geography of Austin are 38,000 local small businesses. So way more. But they
Mm-hmm.
only have like one location. They don't have
Yeah.
billions of dollars in budget to go compete. So if you look at what marketing used to be television, which was all local. That's the only television there
Mm-hmm.
was the local channel. Radio was all local. The newspaper was local. And you had a guy standing on the side of the street, which was all local. Signs
Yeah.
and billboards were local. All of it was local. If you were the national brand, you were having to work with local advertisers.
Mm-hmm.
Digital has changed the world, right? It's made the world around us smaller, but it's made those are the neighborhood we're in now farther away. And so
Mm-hmm.
all of these small businesses have to compete with global brands now to try to get our attention. So if you're Joe
Mm-hmm.
Show's shop around the corner, you gotta spend just as much as Starbucks to get my
Yeah.
eyeballs, but you only have one location. So you're out of luck. There's just nothing you can do. So the average local small business is spending $1,500 to Google and Facebook. They
Mm-hmm.
spend $150 a month minimum to have like a basic app. And then they'll spend another $50 to have a service that will manage like text and emails and blast them out. And then they pay another $500 on average a month to help for somebody to help run those. So
Mm-hmm.
they're
Yeah.
well into two to $3,000 a month to manage some really basic marketing functions that
To
get them
compete with the big
almost
dogs.
nothing. Exactly, to
Yeah.
compete. Gets them almost nothing. On a restaurant, you're gonna pay between 30 and $50 to get a customer in the door. It's pretty crazy because
Mm-hmm.
most of them single ticket item isn't even that much. So,
No.
means you're giving away a couple
No.
of dishes just to get somebody in the door to try it, to hopefully they come back. And so that's
Yeah.
the problem that exists today. So what Loca is a single app. And the other thing is we as consumers, if every one of those businesses, 48,000 businesses were to have their own white label app, we don't want it. We don't want
No.
48,000 apps on our phone. It's
Yeah.
already hard. And what does Starbucks get from their app? They're the one that's worth talking about because 65% of the revenue is driven from their app,
Mm-hmm.
and it was one of the fastest growing. It's where they promote all their revenue. McDonald's credits their app is driving most of the revenue, and now Chipotle is like the app is, and it's all around the rewards, right? The rewards
Mm-hmm.
program. So what do you get if you have an app? You get a rewards program, you get the customer information, right? Because they've signed up, they've done stuff. And now you have a direct way to contact that customer. So you get three things. You get data, you get a way to contact them, and then you're a point of sales. That's really what the rewards
Mm-hmm.
are, is point of sales. So Loca has said, why not give everybody one app, all businesses, and give them all the same stuff? So to do that, we had to think through like, all right, what's the reward system going to be? We experimented with a lot of things. And if even on Starbucks or any of the other ones, if I were to ask you or anyone else, like explain their rewards program, be like, I have no idea. Like carry the
Yeah.
two, divide by seven, sell
Yeah.
your mother and you get something for free. And
You
so,
get a
yeah,
coffee.
exactly. So you have no idea how it works. So after all the experimenting, we realized it has to be cash. Cash. Everyone understands cash. Cash goes everywhere. It's easily transferable. You understand it. It all makes sense. So
Yeah.
Loca is easy cash rewards. You get cash rewards for checking places out. You get cash rewards for returning. If you create content, what we call video referrals, and you can share it on Loca and other places, you'll get paid per view. Then we have these like Pokemon Go. You can go do different things for local
Mm-hmm.
businesses and you get other cash. So lots of different ways to earn cash, and it's all built into rewards. And then you have a map on there where you can find lots of local businesses and see, what all their different rewards are. You can see their events that they're having right now. And then if you go to one of the local businesses, you can check out their menu, you can buy something. So it's also a point of sale for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's an easy way to connect with your customers. And so now all the same things you get for Starbucks, a local small businesses gets that exact same thing for $30. And then
So where's the cash coming from as a reward?
so the business, it's real easy. On the business's side, they're getting the same thing they get for, that Starbucks
Mm,
gets, but they're paying theirs rewards. So for them,
mhm.
they're like, okay, well, if I use Google and I use all these other marketing things, I have this monstrous CAC of $30 to $50 to get you in, or I could just pay you direct. I'll say, hey, Logan, what if I give you $5 walk in and check out the place? Same thing as
Yeah.
a discount, but I'll give you $5
Yeah.
cash. You come and you buy it. You get the convenience of you just submit the receipt on your own time. You don't have to work with the business or anything. You submit your receipt and you get $5 cash, and then you just pay the ticket. So there's no one to enter any special code or anything like that. And it's really
Mhm.
easy. So for the business, they just saved $25. You got
Mhm.
$5, which is five more than you got before. And
Yeah.
it's a nice easy win-win, and instead of really it's cutting out Google and Facebook and giving the money directly to customers. So on an average basis, instead of spending $2 to $3,000, you're spending about $300 a month giving your customers cash rewards. And our fee is
Yeah.
about $30. And so you find you save a lot of money and your customers are happy. The
Yeah.
three things customers say that they don't shop local are they don't know what to expect, they don't know where to find them, and they think they're expensive. So we address
Mhm.
all three of those in one app. So if you go on there, we have a like TikTok experience where
Mhm.
because, users are able to create content that they share, their video referrals. So they're creating content and sharing it, but those are now tied to that business profile. So you can actually
Yeah.
just search through lots of businesses, the people are creating stuff about food, talking about food. The content is the product. So businesses
Mhm.
cannot create anything. It all is customer based. It's all authentic. And what it does for the business is instead of, because these businesses are professionals at everything but marketing.
Yeah.
Th
Yeah.
this now puts it on autopilot. They don't have to do anything. And so now they get, all the rewards for their customers. So customers, nice and easy. They get lots of choices, lots of stuff, and now they have millions of locations all of a sudden. They get the customer's information so they can see different data, lots, things to learn about their
Mhm.
customers. And they have a direct way to contact that customer if they want. They can send them, various promotions and, offer them more cash rewards. It's their birthday. Here's $5. And it does it automatically. But the thing that they get that Starbucks doesn't have is they can find new customers. And
Mhm.
this is really the magic, is now you can engage with customers who are just checking you out. They haven't shopped there before, but they're considering it. And now
Mhm.
you have a way to really engage and find new customers. So absolutely revolutionary for the local small business to kind of try to win back that power. And for the local consumer, what a great tool that you now have a nice, easy way to save some money and find lots of local stuff to do. Some of
Yeah.
our newest products. So this is what we really had to work on. I wanted to go down this route before, but it just didn't work there. But this is where my real estate sets in. Is I had to figure this piece out first. I had to figure out how do we get local businesses and these local customers. What is that secret magic? And it was cash rewards and making sure it's seamless. I mean, to build all that took us a while to figure out the right sauce.
Mhm.
But if you take a map anywhere in a country and you draw a circle, inside that circle is what? Rentals
Yeah.
and local small
Yeah.
businesses. So the next piece that we're about to launch this year is rent. Soon you'll be able to pay rent and you'll get cash rewards to local businesses. And then we'll be adding in utilities and lots of things. We're going to be giving landlords more and more tools for free. So a lot of the stuff that I've already built once in a competitive life, I'm going to build them again, but this time it's all going to be absolutely free. Not only free, but they'll make money. So as a landlord, you're going to have these tools. You now are going to be able to give away an incentive for your tenant to be able to pay rent on time. So you're like,
Mhm.
yes, that sounds great. And
Yeah.
these local small businesses would love to help to chip in to pay for your property management software, which is the form of cash rewards, to get access to your tenants. And so it's only bringing this
Ah.
entire community
Yeah.
together, and that's really the next piece. So we had to build the first part to now
Mhm.
build on the next, because a lot of people are like, "How'd you get into this? They're unrelated." I was like, "They're definitely related. Just
Yeah.
takes a while to, put it all together. So
Yeah, the tenants are the one going out to the
it's
restaurants
exactly
and going to the grocery
80%,
stores.
80% of your customers live within a 4-mile radius. Live.
Yeah.
What does live mean? Rent.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Um, so you're still dealing in Ukraine. How's that been?
Yeah, I'm about to head back there. I was there last November.
So that's your software development focus is
Still,
out of that crew out of
still,
Ukraine still.
yeah. The
So
last company we ended up having, I don't know, probably 250 to 300 employees there. So now we're not nearly that big of a team now. We're more around 15, but between Poland and Ukraine, they're still there. So, my
oh,
CTO right now is in Kiev and he's running off of what they call an Echo Flow. Echo Flow is a little thing you can plug in. When the power turns on, it'll charge up. And then you try to run everything off that until the next time. But he found a guy down the street who's a friend of his who has taken an old wrecked Tesla and he has taken the battery. He's running his entire house off the Tesla battery. So very
oh,
inventive people, but he's been borrowing power from there to kind of get connected. But I mean, Ukrainians are some of the most amazing, resilient people ever. They really are.
mm-hmm.
It's just magical. I mean, one example, I've been there where so oddly enough, it was my birthday. It was October 10th. I forget which year. Must have been 2023,
Mm-hmm.
and that's right after the Ukrainians bombed the bridge. So Russia sent their first wave of, Shahed drones across the country. And they've been bombing every night since. So I've been there many times where it's like 700 in one night. Just continuously happens. And as it does, they constantly are just going after civilian infrastructure. And so they're
Oh,
trying to hit power, they're trying to hit the gas, they're trying to hit your water, just trying to shake the Ukrainian people, but they're really just more empowering them. However, they knocked out all the power in the city, and as soon as the power goes out, like all of a sudden you see everything go dark, then everything starts to light up real slowly, and you're like, and you hear this noise, it's humming in the city, right? Every
yeah.
single store has a generator now, all of them. And they put them outside, they plug in, they communicate, and they share, and there's electrical cords going everywhere, and everything's boop, back open and back to business. And it just shows you how resilient, what amazing people the Ukrainians
Yeah.
are that, they're not gonna be able to put them down. I mean, whatever they throw at them, Ukrainians just find
Yeah.
a way to carry on and, keep moving.
What's your experience been with the draft over there? Are they not running like the draft?
Oh,
And
they're
are
definitely
the
running the
stories
draft.
true on
The
that? Like,
stories
are
are
you
true.
losing guys?
The stories are
Yeah.
definitely true. What you see is true. There are these mobile vans, and they are going after it. Now, I mean, it's a hard one. It's hard for me to opine on that at all because
Yeah.
I didn't I didn't join the draft, and if it happened here, what do I do? I don't know. Ukraine doesn't have the type of resources which Russia is running out of, but they don't have the type of
Mm-hmm.
resources to be paying all of their soldiers, to go and become a meat grinder. So it's hard because they need people on the line, but they're losing them just as fast. So if you look at a
Yeah.
small state, they're called in Ukraine, they're called states or oblasts. Here we call them states, but the Ivano-Frankivsk Oblast, the quotas that they put out, it's something like, 50,000 per state. And if you break that down, like how many young men is 50,000 per state? And you say, okay, well, you're only going to get the men. So, split the population in half. Then you're only going to have the men who are within this age range. Okay, that takes a bunch of the population out. And then you say, okay, well, now if you have 3 kids, you're out. Okay, if you're significant in the business, you're out. And there's not a lot of them. I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
really shrink it down. So you're putting all this pressure on these states to go and do drafts. And then in Ukraine, they're very, uh, it- your address is really important. I don't know how it
Mm.
is in Canada. It's not that way here. You are not officially tied to any specific place, right? You have a social
Mm-hmm.
security number, but it's like just tell us where to send your bills.
Yeah.
There, you must be tied to an address. So you will always be tied to that address unless you officially register a different address. And what makes it so most of them all have they have a connection to the village. And the similarity I can make in Texas is in Texas, there's not there's not a lot of public land. So I know Canada, it's similar to Oregon, Washington, lots of public
Mhm.
land. Texas, there's
Mhm.
no public land. It's
Mhm.
all private. But
Mhm.
everybody seems to be connected to a ranch. They call it the ranch.
Yeah.
And the ranch
Yeah.
is kind of grandfathered in where it doesn't have a lot of property tax because they're not going to build on it, but it stays in the family forever and everybody goes there to hunt. That's really to
Yeah.
hunt, you have to have a ranch. So
Yeah.
everybody's tied to some ranch, whether it's your friend's neighbor or your actual ancestors. Similar in Ukraine, everybody's tied to a village. Same thing. They all have the sela. So these villages are usually where they have their official address. So this is sort
Oh.
of how they're skirting. It's the problem that's existing in Ukraine is the official draft documents. The law is once you've been served with it, then you have to report to the draft and it has to go to your official address. So none of them go to that
Yeah.
address.
To get served, yeah.
So nobody has been served. They estimate, I mean, I just read this that there's 2 million who are considered draft dodgers. And they're
Yeah.
defining the draft dodgers not like the American way of dodging the draft, but the Ukrainian way, which is if they just went home, they'd know there's a notice. And so they now have to go and try to find these people. And the way they do it is pretty bad. They literally will just hunt for anyone who's a young man in the street, throw you in a van, and then you're off to boot camp where they review you to say, okay, are you supposed to be drafted or not? And then they'll go through your review. So they're literally grabbing people and asking questions later. So that is real, no question, because they don't have any money to, get them anyway. But so that part's sad because it is real. I myself have often wondered, like, I imagine one of these times I'm gonna get picked up and just thrown in. They're gonna be like, we don't care if you're American, out you go. So I
Yeah.
travel around all the time there. So I imagine that will probably be the case one of these times. You'll probably be calling me from the front line there. But
Oh, no, yeah, that's
the innovation of the Ukrainians are worth talking about more is,
mhm.
there are a lot of volunteers. So to pretend like the only way
Yeah.
Ukrainians are putting together a military is this way, that's not true at all. And a
Yeah.
lot of the time they're to fill positions not on the line because the volunteers are the ones who they're actually training to be, because you're not just going to send anyone to the line to fight.
No.
You There's a difference in people. There's athletic and non-athletic. So
Yeah.
the ones that are true fighters are the ones going to the edge, but the real champion here is the innovation that is going on in Ukraine. And so it bothers me in the US the way some of these arguments are posted because right now they say, "Oh, we're wasting all this money." The US gave $36 billion in financial aid. That's the amount in actual money, right? They
Mhm.
gave 64 billion in what are called war credits that have now been over 4 years, so longer than the great war for Russia. They've been at this and haven't done it very well. War credits, which not UCLA, but ah, uh, the school will come to me in a second. They did their
Mhm.
report and they found like, all right, the war credits are 64 billion, but it's really only about $18 billion worth of equipment. Uh,
Mhm.
what happens is the US just unloads all of its used stuff and
Mhm.
it charges you about 4 times the price. So this is
Mhm.
the same the world around. This is how the US is the largest arms dealer in the world. And
Mhm.
this is what we sell. We don't give you the good stuff. We replenish our own supply and you get the stuff that was sitting older. And so that's how
Mhm.
we manage that. So Ukraine gets about $18 billion worth of old stuff. So really, we're talking about less than $50 billion that's actually come from the US. And
Mhm.
what have we really gotten from it? US is now the largest supplier of oil to Europe, most of it coming out of Houston, right?
Hmm.
We have seen the most advanced innovation in military technology in anywhere. The
Mhm.
US alone spent $10 billion on their own drone product, which went through like 5
Mhm.
different versions. And at the start of the war, they were so excited to give them to the Ukrainians, like, "This is the most advanced drone ever." They're called the Switchblades, and there's a little
Mhm.
tube like a missile launcher tube, and it shoots out, and the drone pops open like a switchblade, these wings,
Yeah.
and it goes through. Well, in about a week, they found that those switch on had a sticker price of about just shy of $6,000 each,
Yeah.
were completely worthless. Why?
Yeah.
Because they're like, "Oh, we didn't think about the trees." So so these were made for an Afghan, Iraq type interaction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in Ukraine, completely worthless. What
Oh,
Ukraine is now doing is so advanced in their technology that the US is running all kinds of programs and getting free R&D live
yeah.
with what Ukraine is doing. Their drone technology is so advanced that one of my favorite devices they've made, they have a guy, he's 4 miles in and he is wounded and stuck. They can't get to him. They have a drone that goes in, it looks like a coffin on wheels. It really does. It's like this
Oh,
metal case coffin. It goes 70 miles an hour, and the tires on it have this, like they're metal, but they kind of wiggle, and so the video shows it goes in, it hits an IUD, and it hits a tire, it doesn't blow it off. It wobbles and comes back. It's still cruising. It drives in next to him. He gets in it. It closes, and it gets hit by 2 Russian drones and is able to make him back safe.
so we can pick a human up
Yep.
and move him.
It's for, it's medical. So it's,
Yeah.
to get you guys back along the line. So here that a soldier was hit, he's stuck, they're able to drive in and get him back. And so they're leading on some of this amazing technology, but it's fascinating to see their drones. So if you just read the last report, they estimate 33,000 Russians were killed, and all of
Mhm.
them are being done through LED wired or,
Yeah.
I said LED, I meant
Fiber optic. Yeah.
fiber optic on a 5-mile run,
Yeah.
and
I
they're
know.
running and just, running these drones. So this drone technology is so advanced now. They have drones that have 3 drones in them. They're made out of cardboard. They'll fly deep in. They drop another one that flies, farther in to ultimately drop the one with the bomb. So, I mean, the drone technology that is coming out of Ukraine is just one more way the US has massive, capabilities, but it also shows
Yeah.
the talent and skill that is coming out of Ukraine. Here's a country in 2014 didn't really even have an army, and
Yeah.
what they have now built in a defense just cracks me up to not see, like, who cannot be a champion behind them. It just blows my mind that
Yeah.
people,
The underdog.
yeah, they are by far the biggest underdog you could imagine, and yet they're holding their own, and, they're not a wealthy country, but I think the least the US for less than 1% of our budget, we're gonna complain? That doesn't make sense. We have
Yeah.
made way more than $50 billion off of this war. It's ridiculous. So for anyone to complain about not sending Ukraine a little more aid just blows my mind.
Well, in the US, I think is fixed to make a lot more money if Ukraine can
Exactly.
fend off Russia. I mean,
Well,
there's everybody
sadly,
talks about the minerals, and it's a fact. I mean, Ukraine is very rich.
exactly. Well, it's what frustrates me because Kushner and Witkoff are, well, Kushner literally is a son-in-law, and Witkoff is family friend. I don't know if you follow much of this, but World Liberty Financial is the Trump son's fund. They couldn't raise any money after he got elected. They magically raised 500 million, and then they got now the
Mhm.
Saudis when they went through the Middle East tour, the sons were in tow. So that's Witkoff's sons who are in World Liberty with him. So Witkoff
Mhm.
and Kushner are the ones negotiating with Ukraine and um, Russia. And oddly enough, they brought BlackRock, Larry Flint, with them, which blows my mind. And so they're all about. If you learn, the negotiations no longer include the 2 to 300 billion of gold. Those aren't part of it because I
No.
guarantee that is part of what they're trying to do. That's going to be the main deposit that funds the regrowth on both sides. And so you're going to see
Yeah.
lots of private companies come in and say, okay, this is what's going to fund us getting to the minerals, getting to all the steel, and getting all this
Mhm.
back on the ground. So that part disgusts me. I think that's just mind blowing. that
Yeah, the greed always gets in there. I mean, it was Hunter Biden at that other board of
exactly.
Burisma or whatever that company was.
Yep.
I mean, it's just
Yep.
money will always find a way.
That's
So do
it.
you think how do you think that's gonna end over there?
Well, if you ask my opinion, which is worthless, um,
Yeah.
Putin's stuck against a wall. He's got $50 billion in what's called the liquid wealth fund, and they've got gold reserves in there, but he can't touch them because that would eat away at the currency immediately. So he's got 50 billion.
Mhm.
He's running $100 billion deficit running this war. He's up against the fact that now Ukraine is going after all the refineries. right? So
Mm-hmm.
they're slowing his supply. And then his black fleet that is operating, they're going after the actual suppliers. So he needs a way to make money. China's the only one giving him money and supplies. If you
Mm-hmm.
even look at their commercial flight, we are going to start seeing commercial flights falling from the sky.
Mm-hmm.
They have 4 years of having, like, 0 parts. They don't get customer support, they don't get software support from the year. These things are huge pieces of steel just in the sky. So those are just gonna
Oh
be a
no.
metaphor of how bad things are, that they have to come up with something, but for Putin, if he stops, what happens? He
Yeah.
has dried up
Just
most of the private commerce that exists. The railroad stations can't afford to operate anymore. They don't have any employees. All the trucking is shut down because they don't have anything to truck anymore. And so everything's dried up. If you're not tied to the war, you're not making any money, and that money is coming thin. And so he's now missed payments and reduced payments on what he's willing to pay soldiers. They've just went through 33,000. That's as many as they could have recruited. So they're at a
yeah.
stalemate with bringing people in. But if Putin stops,
North Koreans are
yeah,
going in for
exactly.
him.
They got the North Koreans supplying weapons and bodies. So if he
Yeah.
stops, just think of that. Imagine what a ceasefire or peace would do. Wow. That doesn't help Russia. That actually makes
No.
it collapse
It
more.
just costs them a ton of assets. I
So,
mean, they're gonna have an age gap problem now. They had
well,
one
they already
before.
have, but now they have the ramifications of they don't have. I mean, they have been spending money in this war, but the money's gone. So it's not like they can
Yeah.
just turn that. So their best shot is like we have to print, pump oil and get this going. That would be their best shot, which isn't going to be good. So their economy has yet to have the migraine after this war. So they're going to go through a very
Yeah.
hard time and he knows it. So if that happens, that's bad for him. His entire thing is gone. So for him, there's no incentive. Like he doesn't want to do a deal. And Trump knows it. That's what frustrates me is, out of all the countries that have tariffs, Russia doesn't have any tariffs. So out of all
Mhm.
the countries that he calls out on Iran, he's like, anyone who does a deal, is helping Iran is going to have tariffs. Well, guess what? Russia doesn't have any tariffs. Zero,
Yeah.
zero tariffs. So the one country out there we should probably put a tariff on. Not that we do a lot of trade with them, but he's calling out secondary tariffs, but not on Russia. So it's very strange. There's something weird going on with him and Putin. But so Putin has no incentive to try to do this peace deal. Zelensky has
Well,
called him on his bluff every time. He's done everything he's asked.
yeah.
He's like, fine, you want to take our country and sell for minerals? Fine, do that. You want this? You want that? He's giving him everything. And yet Putin won't come to the table.
So what's Putin's motivation then here at the
There
end?
is no motivation for him to stop the war. If he stops it, he's
Yeah.
done. Russia,
Yeah.
as much as people say Russia's never lost a war, they've lost many wars. And if you look through
Yeah.
history, every war they lose, that's when the leader gets thrown out of office. So I don't think
Yeah.
that's
So what do
missed
you
on him.
think what do you think with this move in Venezuela then with China shaking Maduro's hand the morning of the invasion and China's tight they're trying to secure that crude oil reserve.
Well, definitely China wants to because Venezuelan oil is very thick. It's good stuff. The real reason is you can put it in almost any refinery. So
Yeah.
all these refineries, especially coming out of Canada, like we had to build the Keystone pipeline to try to get Canadian oil down here. But refineries are unique in what they can refine. Not everybody can refine any oil, but Venezuelan
Mhm.
oil can go almost anywhere. So it's
Mm.
it's it's the good stuff that everybody does want, and China had a nice deal getting it in. I think this is crazy what we did in taking Maduro out. It blows my mind that that's the action that we've taken. However, if you hear Exxon, the CEO of Exxon has said it probably the best to all of us. So all of us are still kind of like, what is going on in the world right now? But Exxon CEO said, we've been down there twice. We've lost 18 billion. And now you want me to just randomly take a risk on it again? So then, of course,
Yeah.
Trump threatens like, well, then I'll tax the hell out of you. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, that's the answer, right? So,
He wants Exxon to go down there and develop this crude oil.
well, he
Yeah.
wants to make. I mean, if you really look at what's going on, he knows tariffs are about to push prices. So,
Mhm.
economy's already slowing, jobs are down. So he's trying to fight any way he can get the economy to run into the midterms. So if
And bolster
if
the
he can
US dollar.
if he can push down oil to keep down the prices, or if he can get interest rates down, to keep down prices. He hopes that'll help. I hope it's obvious and a solid for sure that they lose the midterms. I mean, I do not
Hmm.
know how any, good, honest, conscious Republican or Democrat can feel like this administration has done, you know, a great job. So they deserve a good midtime lose. And I hate Democrats. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they definitely deserve a good loss here. So,
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll wait and see.
yeah, I hope not. I hope it happens for sure. Although I heard him talk this today. He's like, why do we even have the midterms? I'm like, oh my goodness. This is the craziest
It's called
time.
democracy, man.
Exactly. It's mind blowing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's trying to definitely secure that U.S. dollar, the power over crude, and hamper China because that altercation with Taiwan, I think, is coming.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, here's another benefit. I mean, you only brought it up, so I'll put it out there.
Mm.
Like Russia has been weak. What has Russia been at the center of so many things? If, oddly enough, when Palestine, October 7th is Putin's birthday.
Hmm.
Russians love dates.
Hmm.
So I'm sure we're going to find out that Palestine, the Gaza Strip, and Hamas got a lot of those weapons, and it was financed and put together by Russia. I'm sure we're going to find this out. If you look at why, I mean, they were trying to distract the world. They're trying to get the U.S. out of Ukraine and leave it alone so they could take it over. So having a problem
Hmm.
in Israel and Gaza would be fantastic. So there's
Hmm.
one. Then you see Russia gets stretched. They, influence over Syria. They're like, sorry, we can't do it. No, that's gone.
Hmm.
They definitely have an influence in Venezuela. They may soon lose it in Cuba. Iran is now starting to falter. Russia's spread too thin. They can't help anybody anywhere. So here's
Yeah.
another one where you may see the biggest front to democracy was actually helping Ukraine, which were not helping them very much. And so
Mhm.
this is a massive. And then you see China is playing the same thing. China's like, listen, we see the world through our eyes and
Yeah.
we stay in our element. So it's probably going to be one of the best things for the US dollar, oddly enough, having helped Ukraine. I don't give this to
Hmm.
Trump at all. But I say
Hmm.
the more you can see the US as any type of an ally, that is good for the US dollar. 50% of
Yeah.
the United States currency is outside the US.
Hmm.
63% of all global loans are done in US currency. Why? Because they know they got a place they can go and have a dispute in American courts and feel like it's not going to be biased to them, right?
Hmm.
And they can now transact in a currency that's everywhere. So all these things, and most that's back because we have a huge military to protect democracy here.
Hmm.
So those things build us up. And if you now see Syria as like, okay, well, if I had to pick a partner, who am I going to choose? China's been going around the world doing all kinds of loans. So they've helped Venezuela in
Yeah.
many ways. If you go to Africa, um, I was just in Nairobi, and the entire freeway that you see there was all funded through, China. China gives the loan, and then China brings in Chinese contractors to do all the work. So they've been doing lots
It's a
of
win-win for
exactly,
China. Now you have debt to
exactly,
China, you got
exactly.
interest.
So China's been doing that because that is a good strategy. I think it's what the U.S. should be doing more of, right? Let's do bridge building versus bombing.
We're peacekeepers. They're
Exactly.
peacekeepers, you guys. We keep peace.
That's what they're
Yeah.
trying to do, right? So,
Yeah,
but
right.
where it buys them is the US, although we have to go through presidential terms every 4 years, for the most part, we are democratically proactive. And I hypocritically have to swallow my words when I say that because,
Mhm.
I've laughed at, how Bush defined democracy in Iraq and how we go through every
Oh.
president and how he defined democracy. And that's unfortunate that I'm not saying democracy is something we have to give people. They
Mhm.
need to define it themselves, but we should support them when they are there. And so the more democracy there is, the more they have to pick a partner. And now you're probably going to see Venezuela will definitely, whether this is the Don Roe doctrine or not, are probably not going to be looking towards China as much as they are the U.S.
Mhm.
And we'll see how that lays out. I again do not. I think Maduro would have been overthrown no matter what. I think it's more of
Yeah.
how you influence and assist. So I think that was a crazy move to have done. Nonetheless, having them become democratic is very good. The same thing I think in Iran was soon to happen in Venezuela. I think we're going to see more and more of it. Russia's broke. They can't fund
Hmm.
all this all the time. And that
Yeah.
is one of the reasons Trump could take advantage of it and look strong, is because Russia can't do anything. They could
Hmm.
go and bomb Iran. They could do whatever they
They're
want because Russian
using the war machine to wear him down.
exactly. Russia can't do a single thing. So they're out. And China's
And
like,
if
I'm not going anywhere over there. Forget it. I'm out.
well, and China wants their LNG bad, so they're kind of bleeding to bolster Russia too. So
Negotiations. What's weird is
proxy wars.
we need China. We're running a $2 trillion a year deficit, which means tariffs make no sense. If we want tariffs, they can make sense, but we have to cut our budget. Otherwise, we're having to borrow $2 trillion. And if you have to borrow $2 trillion, then you need to give it to people so you can borrow it. And the only way we
Yeah.
do that is we run a trade deficit. You have to means you have to be running a trade deficit in order to buy products. So they have American dollars, so they will buy your
Hmm.
bonds. And you can't do both tariffs and running a $2 trillion. If he wanted to come in and say, all right, the big beautiful bill is 5 trillion and we're not a dime more. We are going to balance the budget and do tariffs. It's like, okay, well, that makes sense. I mean, you're at least doing it's draconian still, but you're doing a move to pay off the debt. And guess what? The
Yeah.
bond market's going to go crazy. The US dollar is going to go crazy. So you would like turn this economy around in a heartbeat. Instead, he's like, well, I'm still going to spend $2 trillion, but now I'm also going to try to charge the everyday people in tariffs. So they don't match or make sense.
Yeah, he says they might feel the pain in the short term, but we'll see. And now
Yeah,
he's
there's
crediting
exactly.
the $500 billion more to the military
Yeah,
because the tariffs can pay for
yeah.
it. I don't know.
None,
We'll see
none
in
of it makes
time.
sense. Yeah, yeah,
Who knows what goes on truly behind the scenes? History will tell us.
yes.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hindsight. Hopefully, yeah,
But
exactly. Hopefully, it's not
yeah,
50 years and we're all saying, release the Trump files, release the Trump
yeah,
files, which have the
yeah,
Epstein files in them.
yeah, yeah. What happened to Pam Bondi? Where'd she go? She's awfully quiet. I seen
It's
she was yelling about
not
something the other day,
not
but
just quiet, but he's been bad mouthing her. So,
oh, I think the
so
wheels are coming off a little
yeah,
bit. The Patel, the FBI
I
guy.
know.
I mean, he just was in the seat for 1 second and he burnt
Yeah,
himself. Like,
yeah. Well, it's sad to go on running a podcast in the name of, exposing the truth, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, no, 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 there are no Epstein files. There's nothing. There's
yeah,
nothing. You're like, wait a minute. You literally
yeah,
ran for like 3 years saying that there is, and you want to release it, and now you're saying there's not. So
yeah.
yeah, so we'll
There's
see.
the big, powerful people behind the curtain,
Well, it would
just the
be
Wizard
interesting
of
because
Oz.
first there was Green, right? So she's now left and become, yeah, definitely not a supporter anymore. She's running. So I wonder if that'll be Bondi too, as she gets the
Mm,
bad mouth and maybe she gets the X that she'll come out and say, yes, he told me all the time I had to release this and go after these people and do this. It's like, so,
yeah.
so we'll see.
Then the release was heavily redacted. So,
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll see.
well,
Hopefully it's slowing down and starting to crumble and the midterms will lead to an impeachment, but
well, I don't know who's going to take the seat or after Trump that's actually going to at least put pressure on that stuff like Trump did at one
I
point.
know.
Who's
It's
going to keep
it,
their foot down on that?
it's an interesting
Nobody.
one. I mean I joke because everyone's like, yeah, Vance, and Vance 28. I'm like, how about Vance 26? But
Yeah.
I wonder what a Vance or a Rubio would do if they were not under the thumb of a Trump.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder because if you look back, I mean, Vance was, you know, he literally compared Trump to Hitler. If you go not back too far, so there was some logic in there in both of these men at one point before they became, the sycophants that they are now. So it does make me
What do you
wonder,
think?
but
What do you think if Elon threw his hat in?
no, I'm done with Elon. He is
Done with
he's
Elon,
proven that he's worthless. Like the guys
the Doge.
do, all over the place. It's not I don't have a problem with Doge. I actually like Doge.
I
Uh,
like Doge
it
too.
was a train wreck in how they did it, but it could have been very effective. The problem is Doge should be a recommender. So the way legislation works, and Texas is the same as the US. You have a House, you have all these committees, and you have the Senate, right? The House is the details because the House goes everywhere, right? There's
Mhm.
more House members than there are. So they're the details. The Senate is the theory. So if you get a
Mhm.
Senate bill, it's like this big, and you get a House bill, it's this big, right? And that's
Mhm.
that's how it has to work. So if you're going to unwind costs, you gotta find out because there's overhead and all kinds of things. And so when you're cutting costs, if you're not careful, you're gonna find that some of the things that actually you called waste did actually save money over here because it made it so this didn't happen or that.
Downstream.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the only way to unwind that is through the House. You can't just go in and say, "Oh, this is waste, cut, 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 cut," because you will end up costing yourself more, even though there is a whole bunch of waste out there. And so,
Mhm.
what Doge should have been, and it would still be around and very effective had they done it this way, was get over your little power trip and make recommendations. Be on the hunt
Mhm.
because now we have nobody on the hunt, right? Because if they brought up recommendations for places to go look into, well, what does it do? It causes committee hearings to spark up. All of a sudden, everybody's on it. Like, hey, there's questions here. Let's look into. Okay, damn, we're gonna have to cut this,
Yeah.
right? So we needed a source to put things under the microscope, and he blew his chance. But I love
Well,
the effort.
I heard that none of it, like, it was all just, like, exposing it, this waste
It was a
is
scam.
here,
There was no
but
they were like, take they even gotten what's funny is the the rubbish that they're calling out in the government doing is what they started doing to look good. So they
yeah,
wanted to keep showing that they're cutting all this and making all these savings. So then they knew contracts that were already done. They'd be like, "Oh, we cut that one." And so the contract,
yeah.
there's nothing left on the contract, but the original contract's like a billion. So like, "Oh, we cut another billion." And so I'm like,
But I thought they didn't actually cut a dollar, it all had to get passed in the House.
"It does."
This is all just what they
Oh, no,
found, so
but
they
they
didn't actually do any physical
exactly,
cuts.
exactly. But that's what I mean. It's
Yeah,
like they
yeah.
basically just created a big train wreck, messing people up and chasing things out. A good example is like the email they sent out to try to buy people out to cut the federal workers. So what do you do if
Mhm,
you buy everybody out of
mhm,
federal workers? Who is the most eligible federal? This is from someone who worked in the state government.
mhm.
If you offer the best people an exit who can already get a job in the private sector, they're like, done. Pay me 60, 80
Yeah,
grand. I'll take it. I can find a job
buy me
easy.
out.
Guess who can't find a
Yeah,
job?
yeah,
The worst ones, the ones you're actually trying to get rid of. So
yeah,
now you have government being run by some of the worst, slowest operators of all who couldn't find a job in the private sector. They're the ones that you're stuck with. That's a great example of where, and guess what? When they turn the lights back on, I mean, you're already behind because you lost some people, but now you're going to be super inefficient on a long
yeah,
term. So that's the problem is they were doing things like that, sending out emails, pretending not to, going into this, going after that. So if they were more specific and trying to be an alert for the house, it would still be around and it'd be very effective. But now it's
yeah.
not because they just got too crazy.
Well, it should be effective going forward or enacted going
Well, they
forward
shut it
because, I
down.
mean,
There is no
yeah,
Doge anymore. So
there's no Doge
yeah, they shut
anymore.
it
No,
down. So
once Elon was out after, what was it, 90
yeah,
days or 120 days he had
yeah.
tops, then that was kind of the end of
But
Doge.
he was out because I mean, it's really weird. There's still nobody's talked about it. But you remember the day he stood by Trump? He had like a black eye. I don't know if you
Well, I thought he timed out because he was a consultant or
well, he
the
did time out,
government.
but come on, the guy got
Yeah,
into national security stuff. He could stay as long as he wanted. He's
yeah,
Trump's best
yeah,
friend. Trump's babysitting his kid. He could do whatever he wants. So,
yeah,
but it was weird. He had like this big black eye. He was known that he and Treasury Secretary did kind of fist or chest bump each other at a
yeah,
time in the hall. So there must have been some kind of scrimmage that happened, a physical one that ultimately led to him. But ultimately, I think Musk was up against the time of not really showing any progress like he promised. He was going to
mhm,
be like, "Well, I go in and do companies, I do them like this, and they're fast." But he was finding like government is not the same thing, and so I think he was kind of frustrated, but also, the pizzazz was gone.
Well, he's trying to save money, and then Trump's talking about the big beautiful bill, spending 2 more trillion, and
And he
Elon's like, "Aren't we trying to lower the deficit?"
and he cut all of his electrical incentives. So yeah, car
Yeah,
sales.
what is there, like $50 million in tax
Yep,
rebates or something
yep,
there? But
yep,
I mean, you shouldn't have to subsidize the damn thing at the same
yep,
time. Come on now,
yep, yep. So
let's make it work.
yep. So yeah, a lot of mix-ups for him, but no, I think I'm not a big, having come from Austin, I've met Musk once when he came here earlier days
Mhm.
to lobby the governor to get Tesla to have their own factory. So I was a huge fan. Still think he's a smart entrepreneur, but no, now I'm like done with him in politics. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
you're too wishy-washy, are you? I mean, if he was one focus and like this is my principles I run on, that's one thing. But now he's proven to be all over the place. Like if you do support him, you have no idea what you're gonna get on the other side.
Who are
Exact
the
same
Dems
crap.
pushing right now?
What's that?
Who are the Democrats pushing right now? Or have they started to push
Oh
anybody?
yeah. Oh yeah.
DeSantis?
No, that's well, it depends on who. I mean, DeSantis is a strong Republican out of Florida, but
Oh no, sorry, I'm thinking of the governor of California. What's his
Gavin
name?
Newsom,
Gavin Newsom, right?
yes,
Yeah.
that's who they're pushing. That's
Oh,
that is
bad, bad, bad.
definitely
Just look at the great jobs
that
he's
is
done.
definitely who they are hoping, comes in because they're up against AOC, who is going around doing her own national campaigns. Republicans hope it's AOC. Republicans want
They're
to do
both bad.
everything to get AOC out there because she's crazy and well, kind of dumb, but she's super attractive. So then Democrats are like, well, maybe she'll win, but
It's the Justin Trudeau
yes,
ticket.
exactly. Yes.
He's
Although
got nice
worse,
hair.
although worse. I mean, AOC is much more of a socialist than
Yeah.
Trudeau. Trudeau at least had his father to run the back of.
Yeah.
But AOC would be a wild one. But you never know. I mean, I do think something like a Trump is probably going to make us end up with some crazy thing like a Bernie Sanders. I mean, there's probably going to be this
Oh,
overcorrection, which I hate to be in a room because I'm so done with Trump. I'm just like, if there's one person out there who could have stood up and said, you know what, the biggest problem is I mean, if you look at every major power in the world in history, they fall because they went broke. And if
mhm.
there's,
Mm.
country with 37 trillion running 2 trillion a year, if there's one person that was luckily enough to have a campaign where the House and Senate fell his way and he's crazy enough to shake things up, that's the guy. Like he could have cut 2 trillion. And if he didn't do it, I mean, nobody's gonna. So now we're gonna
Well,
get
it's going to take decades.
I know it's gonna
That's the
be a
thing is you
mess.
can't do it in 8 years. You can't do it in 4. It's got
Yep.
to be total reform.
But if he really wanted to boost the economy, I mean, I know it's crazy, but cutting $2 trillion would have said more to the bond market, which would have lowered rates,
Mhm.
and more to the US dollar than anything. So,
Mhm.
we
Well, you need the world to believe in the US
yep,
dollar. The US is in big trouble.
exactly,
So,
exactly. I mean, it's hard to unwind out of the US dollar, but yes, I mean, having done something like we're gonna cut our debt, I mean, that is the magic ticket, but instead they dug in deeper. I'm just mind blown. So that's
with
where
every
yeah,
president,
all of them exactly. Nobody. I don't understand
I'm going to spend, I'm going to
the
spend.
difference between a Republican and a Democrat. It's Republicrats. They are the
Yeah.
same thing. They're just who they give money to varies, but it's the exact same thing. They're all Keynesian. They all think that they can use a Fed to print money and just buy supply when
Mhm.
they want, and it's crazy. It's a hard one for me because I wish there was a candidate who came in, but we're not going to get it from Newsom. We definitely wouldn't get it from an AOC. So that's
No.
why it's hard because they're going to be by far worse. There are, when they come in, they're saying like, "I'm starting at 2 trillion." Like,
Yeah.
so
Well, that's because they've inflated the dollar's so inflated that, half a trillion 15 years ago doesn't go as far as,
no, it doesn't.
we got to
Well,
spend 2
you
trillion.
you brought up. I mean, you said it's long term, but that's probably how we end up getting out of this mess. Unfortunately, it's going to come through inflation. Because
It's going to
if
come. Yeah.
there's no other way, I mean, something's got to give, and that's the only thing that can give. So you bring
Yeah.
down your debt with inflation. So we're probably going to we're probably going to see where 3 to 4 becomes the new annual target. Because
Well, look at 50 years ago what the big spends were. I mean, if you look back at what Reagan spent and those guys, I mean, they probably spent a lot of money, but it was fractions, and it was
exactly,
still, and you got a lot more for it. But
exactly.
I don't know. Well, Thanks for coming on
Well, no,
today. Very
appreciate it. Sorry I was
interesting.
late. That's on me. So.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, very insightful. Interested to see how the apps go. Loca, very interesting. I'm a small business owner, so I will
Nice.
definitely check it out because
I
it would
like it.
apply to me.
Well, I hope we're right now in 5 cities. We're gonna expand. We're gonna hit 20 cities this year, and soon
Go
we'll have
international. Let's go.
exactly.
Come on,
That's the
Canada.
next one. So
Okay,
yeah.
appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Logan.
You bet. Take care.
Bye.